And to that piece of lieutenant that's always on his podcast, bash us, him.
Attention to roll call.
That's right. Good morning, everybody. 8:05 live Eastern time. And of course, it's Wednesday. So originally we were supposed to have a guest interview today. Unfortunately, the guest couldn't make it. So we'll have them next week. Change gears. We're talking about politics over public safety when it comes to the NYPD in coordination, collaboration with ICE, if there is any. So we know at the governor level of New York State, Kathy Hochul is trying to create legislation where in numerous counties throughout New York State, or eventually the entire New York State, no one would actually work with ICE. And that's pretty interesting. You have to ask yourself, is that good for policy? Is that actually, is that what we do in New York State or any state in this country? I mean, Bruce Blakeman said that it's pretty much endangers the public, right? Because Nassau County right now is probably one of the driving forces in New York State for any county that's actually working with ICE. Other than Nassau, I can't think of anyone else actually working with ICE. So we're talking about Jessica Tisch, the NYPD Police Commissioner, and how she has had the NYPD at odds with ICE. Quite interesting. I think we should dive right into this. John Marlin, good morning. Let's do it.
Yeah. What's up, brother? Yeah. So we saw Jessica Tisch, NYPD Police Commissioner, go out. We showed you that last week. She was on stage with Kathy Hochul, as she said she was not going to cooperate with ICE in any stretch of the imagination, that there was no reason for them to be involved in civil enforcement. And it really bothers me because when you commit a crime in this country, it's not civil. If it was a violation, then we could say that it's civil. And someone that holds the title of police commissioner or police chief or director of police, they're very well aware of the terminology that they're using. And it just shows how far politics has come, even into where we don't even try to hide it anymore. Jessica Tisch recently did an interview on Fox News where Rosanna Scotto asked her about it. And this is what she had to say.
Can we talk a little bit about ICE and the arrest here? I know that you did a press conference with the governor last week, and the NYPD is not cooperating with...
Well, it's really simple for the NYPD. We haven't worked directly with ICE on civil immigration enforcement in almost 10 years in New York City, Rosanna. And last year, we saw the lowest crime numbers for violent crime that we have seen. So you can't tell me that not working directly with ICE on civil immigration enforcement is having negative implications for our crime. Now, we do work very closely with the federal government on all sorts of cases, on gun cases, on gang cases, on terrorism cases, on drug cases, through our partnerships with the FBI, with Homeland Security investigations, with the DEA. And the legislation that the governor is proposing hasn't changed that in the least.
I'm just wondering, with the, did you call the president of the United States and say, we have this, we don't need another Minnesota in New York City?
Well, we certainly don't need another Minnesota in New York City. And what people need to remember is when ICE operations or civil immigration enforcement operations come into the city, they create unrest, they create anger, they create fear. And local police departments don't get to walk away from the consequences. They have to respond to the next 911 call. They need to do the work to make sure that the neighborhoods remain stable. They need to rebuild trust in communities that can be shattered based on actions that the police themselves didn't take. And so, no, we do not want another Minnesota in New York City, and the police department is doing the work in communities to build trust.
So you heard her there, and if you paid close attention to what she's saying, it should really make you mad, because the thing that happened in Minnesota and what's the two shootings that happened in Minnesota are directly the fault of the Minneapolis Police Department. They're directly the fault because, again, we've explored it here, right? And I'm not going to beat around the bush. ICE doesn't appear to be well trained in civil enforcement when we talk about operating as a police department and doing crowd control. And they really don't have the manpower to do that. And you know, for those of you that don't know, ICE, you could be stationed in New York. They're like, yeah, get in your car and drive to Minneapolis. You drive to your car, you get there, you're working with a bunch of dudes that you don't know, in a city that you don't know, in a place you don't know, and you're being swarmed by all these maniacs that are blowing horns on you for 12 hours, and the police department's nowhere to be found. So none of what would have happened, and nothing what happened in Minneapolis would have never happened if the police department was cooperating with ICE. And to even go further, ICE wouldn't even be on the ground doing these operations if these police departments, these courthouses, the jails, the rest of the city would just honor detainers from ICE. So, I mean, I don't know what the hell she's talking about. What's up, Mont?
Yeah. Morning, guys. Morning, chat. While I don't think her rhetoric is at the level of the Minnesota Chief O'Hare and the sheriff in Philadelphia that we talked about, Sheriff Bilal. Her rhetoric isn't at that level yet, but she's getting really close there. You know, I don't understand why she, as the head of the NYPD, is not, you know, she's not telling people to stay home and to not escalate these confrontations with ICE. You know, because like John said, the reasons those incidents happen in Minnesota is because those people escalated the situation. You know, it's not, like we said before, you don't have a right to obstruct the federal officers from doing their job. Okay, you may not like it, but first of all, that's what they do. That's their job, and you don't have a right to get out there and obstruct them and to confront them. And when you do, there's a greater likelihood that situations are going to go sideways. You know. And as John said before, the ICE does not seem to be trained for crowd control, because really, when have they had to do that before? They've been doing these operations. Now, they haven't been doing it at this scale, right? But they've been doing those operations for, you know, since, you know, for a very long time, let's just say, okay? And they've never had to deal with these crowds of agitators, these people following them in vehicles and blocking the roads with their vehicles and whatnot. So, you know, the more people escalate these situations, the more likelihood that they'll get out of hand. And instead of encouraging people to stay home and not do that and not, raise the stakes already, she's making it a very one-sided discussion. And as we'll get around to it, I think it's clearly an agenda at play here. But I just don't think this is a smart, you know, I don't think what she's saying is very smart on her part, you know.
So I think the backdrop of what Jessica Tisch is saying is that the NYPD is doing so well with crime, and it's particularly, she says, the past 10 years, that the NYPD has not cooperated with ICE anyway. What she's trying to say is there's been no effect then or any effect now in the past decade. So what she's saying also is that she's not willing to evolve within the police department. We know the police department is forever changing. Now, that may be a good argument, but the bottom line is, in the past decade, much has changed. What have we had in the past decade, which they forget to mention, but now they want to subliminally message it. All right, because normally the messaging is that there's a pre-COVID era, and there's a post-COVID era. So what about during this past decade, the pre-COVID era and post-COVID era, when we talk about immigration, when we talk about illegal military age males, when we talk about an emasculated police department by the vaccine mandate, we have numerous police officers that have been pushed out, who've left their career. We've had a mass exodus. Things have completely changed in this decade. So while she wants to say everything was fine, it's not, especially when their crime numbers are in fact a complete lie and just gaslighting the public. And with that, we have a problem with youth crime. We have a major problem. We talked about patterns that we've had. And what also changed? Well, we had Mayor Eric Adams. We had Mayor Eric Adams, who contributed to this migrant crisis in New York City. So things vastly changed in this decade. For her to say that everything is fine and there's no need to cooperate with ICE also foreshadows what we already know, is that she stands in line and parallel and she in lockstep with Kathy Hochul. So there's no doubt about it. We all believe that she's going to run for lieutenant governor. So she's already foreshadowed that where she stands. Guess what? She is the queen of rebrand, right? She always talks about data. If you measure the data, things have changed vastly. And we've seen an immense amount of crime that has emanated from illegal military age males. So the fact that she's not cooperating with ICE just shows where she stands, and she's put politics over policy.
Well, yeah, I mean, she definitely ties everything into the crime numbers, saying, "Oh, you know, we're at historic lows. Last year, we were down in crime." And you know, for those of you that don't remember, Bob Holden on the way out asked for all the data. He asked for all the data, how the NYPD audits itself for crime numbers, and she flipped out. She called him, tell him lose my number. This is ridiculous. Why are you doing this? And the story got crushed. The story that was supposed to go in the media got killed. So, you know, I don't know anyone that thinks that crime's down, by the way. I don't know anyone that lives in New York City. I don't know anyone that works for the New York City Police Department, including commanding officers of commands. I don't know anyone that believes that crime is down. I don't know anyone that believes that we're at historic lows or historic levels in crime. So that's the other thing there. It's like this, it's like this fake narrative. And you could clearly see the benefit of having Jessica Tisch as your police commissioner. But when you watch her in that interview, I just have flashbacks of her on the stage with the governor, with the mayor and the governor, going through the crime data, and her almost like, I need water. And her composure is not there, because I see the same thing when she brings up historic lows in crime. You know, she doesn't have a good poker face. I will play Texas Hold'em with her any day of the week, because I just see that there's something under there. And my personal opinion is, yes, I do believe that she will be announced as Kathy Hochul's lieutenant governor, and whoever becomes the police commissioner will be left holding the bag when this house of cards collapses. Because right now, this whole historic lows in crimes is sitting on a house of cards that's built up and propped up by the bought and paid for legacy media. It's absolutely disgusting to watch what's occurring. Fox News and New York Post, the whole thing about history and Jessica Tisch. What has been implemented besides mobile field force, which was always there anyway? What has been implemented that has brought crime down? There's not one thing. There hasn't been one thing that, as a matter of fact, things have been taken away. Right? Things have been taken away. Effective tools in the New York City Police Department, effective units in the New York City Police Department have been emasculated. So what happened? You know, what happened that all of a sudden crime's down? What are you guys doing differently? Was it the Q teams? We always did this type of enforcement. And, you know, they're not effective. I'm sorry. Like, what they're doing is they're going out and they're writing C summonses. And what's happening? Your 911 calls are failing. Your report taking has zero integrity in it. Zero. And we're going to get through that throughout. But here she is in that same interview speaking on the crime numbers. You tell me how confident she is in what she's saying. You tell me, because I'll tell you right now, if you see the data of how the NYPD audits and what they find in their audits and how they just take it as, oh yeah, no, actually, yeah, we did make history, and they walk off, you would know why she's this way.
Releasing its latest crime stats, and we are the first to bring you those numbers. Major crimes dropped last month, and murders declined to their lowest levels ever.
It was the safest January ever for gun violence, with the fewest shootings and shooting victims in recorded history. Joining us right now, New York City Police Commissioner Jessica Tisch. Welcome back. Nice to see you.
Thank you so much for having me back.
Congratulations to all of us.
Thank you. Yes, congratulations to all of us on these extraordinary crime numbers, but all thanks thanks goes to the men and women of the New York City Police Department who have been out there in sub-freezing temperatures, making gun arrests, facilitating First Amendment activity, doing water rescues. You know, it's cold, everyone else stays inside, but the men and women of the New York City Police Department don't stop. And the results that they have ushered in this month are extraordinary.
What do you attribute the lowest crime stats ever?
Again, it's the right strategy, and the cops are executing it brilliantly. So let's go over it. This January, we saw murders fall by 60%. We saw shooting incidents fall by 20%, shooting victims by 30%. Overall crime was down almost 7% compared to last January. Robberies were down almost 10%. Burglaries, almost 30%. These are extraordinary numbers.
What's the metric that you trust most to show you that the city is safer, not just statistically quieter?
Well, I mean, I think people feel safer in the city, and the numbers just really tell an incredible story about what the men and women of the NYPD are doing.
And one of the things that was notable is retail theft. And retail theft is down. And one thing that it says in the numbers here is that there has been a change in how some of these investigations have played out, looking more at patterns, things along those lines. What's changed that you've seen a difference?
Retail theft is down 16%, which is amazing. And we've changed the way that we've approached investigating retail theft. We don't want to see toothpaste behind glass doors, and we don't want to see our 24-hour pharmacies closed. So retail theft is really a pattern crime, and we are now investigating it like a pattern crime, and our arrests are up on retail theft.
So you arrest, is the DA keeping them or making it a little bit more difficult for them to come out and do it again?
Yeah, when we can show pattern crimes, meaning repeat offenders, people knocking off the same place over and over and over again for thousands of dollars, we are seeing real success working with the DAs to make arrests and to have people pay the consequences. Thank goodness is right.
I thought I needed a personal shopper in CVS. I wasn't sure.
So Rosanna gives it up right there, right? She doesn't want to shop in CVS in Manhattan, but supposedly it's safe and retail theft is down. So if you listen to what she said that, oh, we now investigate retail theft. I'm sorry, wait, the New York City Police Department stopped investigating crimes? I wasn't aware. I wasn't aware as a taxpayer. I had no idea. I had no idea that you guys just decided you weren't going to investigate. When was that? How long did that happen for? And when did it start again? Could we get that data? Like, what do we mean that we stopped investigating and we stopped arresting people for retail theft? Now, and then she goes on to tell you that arrests for retail theft are up. But what you know and what everyone knows is that reporting of retail theft is significantly down because they got sick of being told there's nothing we could do. So if arrests are up and reporting's down, what does that tell you? Retail theft is up significantly in New York. If Rosanna Scotto, while sitting there saying, oh yeah, it's great. Oh, I can't believe it. I can't believe it. You guys have made history, but I don't feel safe shopping in CVS. I just need someone to go shopping for me. Oh, but I'm so glad you're here to tell me your strategy. And what was her strategy? Burglary's down 30%. This is down 30%. How did you get there? What was the strategy you used to get there?
Has anyone noticed that prior to this year, Hochul's and Tisch haven't been in that many press conferences, but all of a sudden you're seeing them together in an awful lot of press conferences, right? I find that very curious, and I think it goes back to what John said, that she might be jockeying to be lieutenant governor. But again, I believe nothing is a coincidence, right? And if crime is down, then why are there more brazen incidents? Viral news. He put up a post last night where he was talking about newsstands getting robbed in Manhattan, and my question is, if crime is down, why do we see kind of unprecedented instances of crime happening? because you would think that criminals wouldn't be emboldened to do things like that. Now don't get me wrong, they've happened in the past, but they seem to be happening a lot more in recent years. In particular, there was a pattern in 2024, and it seems to be back as of December 2025 and now. So my question is, if crime is down, why are perps emboldened to do these things? It just, to me, it doesn't add up. Yeah. And as John said before, she's given us plenty instances before that show her not being confident in reporting those crime numbers. And again, I'll point out to the last press conference she was with Kathy Hochul, where Kathy Hochul was with them. And we pointed out how nervous Tisch was, and how erratic her movements were, and she asked for water a couple of times, and it didn't seem like the usual confident Tisch that we're accustomed to. So I think none of that is coincidental. There's something that even if it's just an alliance going on, I definitely think this is recent, because again, they weren't in press conferences together like they have been recently.
Yeah, I'm with Stephen S., by the way. She didn't really ask for water. It was more like slave water. And I told you so back when. Kept saying that too. She wasn't really asking, but she was definitely stressing. You can see her body language really changed, right? Normally, I often say, she gives you bedtime stories, but that time she was really shaken up. She wasn't getting a kid to sleep at that time. What's interesting about this also is the NYPD, especially with Jessica Tisch, I have to admit, they do a great job of gaslighting the public in believing that crime is down and how effective they are. Because, and I don't blame the public, right? It's not their wheelhouse. It's not their forte to understand crime reporting, right? Something that we understood from working in the police department. It's like me trying to explain to someone how to break down a plumbing situation that they may not know of. It's gibberish. But what's interesting about that, what they don't tell you is, we all know this, if arrests are up, it's not an indicator that things are good. It's an indicator that things are bad, right? In order to have an arrest, what do you need? You need a crime, you need a complaint, you need a witness, you need an officer taking action. And in order to have these things, have investigations, have arrests, there has to be a criminal element. There has to be some criminal activity. We just don't arrest people out of thin air. So that's what's interesting about that, right? They don't. By the way, Stephen, thank you so much, man. It's been a rough 2 weeks. I appreciate it. I'm definitely feeling a little bit better. I'm not all the way there, but I'm getting there. But isn't that interesting? We often talk about that same thing with the Eric Adams administration, constantly bragging about how many firearms have been removed by the street. Now, that doesn't take away from the fantastic job that the cops do with the boots on the ground. And that's how they try to make the correlation, right? By getting you to empathize with the fact that the police officers are out there in sub-freezing temperatures, which we spoke about on Monday. The cops are out there with their boots on the ground. They're doing the best that they can with the job presented to them. There's no doubt about it. But the leadership level, they're lying to the public about these crime numbers, right? Because retail theft is also a sign of deteriorating quality of life in New York City. And it's interesting, if you actually listen to that interview just now, you hear actually opposing arguments, but yet they were trying to agree on camera, because Jessica Tisch says, "Oh, people feel safe now," and Rosanna Scotto told you, "I don't feel safe, right? That's why I don't shop at CVS." Well, the way that you feel is a representative, right? Your perception is reality, and they often try to push this narrative, right? Perception versus reality, but your perception is reality. Your perception of how you feel on the streets of New York City is an indicator for you, the average person. We don't have to say to, "Hey, it's Monday," or I'm sorry, it's Wednesday, February 3rd of 2026, or February 4th, whatever today is. How do you feel today, right? Well, hey, did you know it's 16% down in crime? That means nothing to the person, an average person walking the streets. What's important to them, their data, their indicator is how they feel. And Jessica Tisch often is pushing that same narrative about how do people feel. And people do not feel safe in New York City. And the indicator is there. And if arrests are up, it's a sign that crime is up. You need a crime, you need a victim, you need action.
Yeah, I'd love to know where she came up with, well, people feel safer. For even Rosanna Scotto, who's holding a tongue, right? Because she has to, because she can't get in trouble by the billionaires, she was like You clearly see it. So, here's a little. This came out from Bernadette Hogan yesterday, New York One. She says, "New Governor Kathy Hochul apparently has chosen a running mate, but doesn't say who. The offer went to that one person, and that one person accepted." Right? And I've been told it's likely none of the people that have been out in the public thus far. So look, to me, I'm willing to bet money. I already asked. I asked Pauly Market months ago if they could put the bet up, because I would bet it's going to be Jessica Tisch. I would bet money, because like this whole crime is down. We don't need to cooperate with ICE. Everything's fine. There's nothing going on. We're safer for it. So, speaking of viral news, he also has another alias called Leroy Press, right? That's how I originally knew viral news, as Leroy Press, right? So he put this out yesterday, and all this is a post saying that in the East Village yesterday, two separate scooters roll up on a dude. They beat him up. They take his cell phone and other property. The precinct responds. And what do you think the report states? They took a report for misdemeanor assault. Who do we think was riding on the scooters who committed the robbery? Do we think that they're legal residents of New York City? Do we think that they're legal residents of this country? No, they're not. Right? So this plays into a lot of things of what she said here. So just last night, you have a crew, and I'll again bet money, and I'll bet a lot of it. I'll bet a big portion of everything I have, that the individuals on these scooters were not born in this country, do not have citizenship in this country, and they were here illegally, right? So that falls in the face of what she said, where she said that, we don't need to cooperate with ICE because everything's fine and crime's down, basically saying that illegal immigrants don't commit any crime in New York City. So scratch that. Then she said, and we've been at historic lows in crime. Well, yeah, obviously you've been at historic lows, because you're using this CompStat magic. Because here you clearly have someone that was robbed. So this is what viral news states. It was reported that two males on two scooters beat and robbed the victim for his phone and his property. Cops from the 9th Precinct showed up at the location and took a report for an assault. Cops canvassed the area with no luck. So, I mean, right then and there, it disproves every single thing that she said. That's it. So there are illegals committing crimes still in New York, right? We've been hearing for 2 years that these robberies from scooters, that pattern's gone. They solved it. It's not there. But yet every day we hear about people getting robbed on scooters throughout all the 5 boroughs, by the way, not just in Manhattan. But the fact that it's happening in Manhattan should really scare everybody. And the fact that it's happening even in the frigid cold temperatures, even at when crime's at its lowest point, when it's cold, like thank Jack Frost. Again, he won January Cop of the Month for the NYPD, not Jessica Tisch. You should really, really pay attention. Oh, and guess what? We looked up the numbers for the 9th Precinct robberies. And guess what? They just happen to be down 60%. They just happen to be down 60% for the 2026 so far. So, it's just a miracle. We just completely misrepresent the crime statistics. And everything's fine. Everything's fine. Crime's at historic lows. Don't worry about this. Illegals commit no crimes. None illegals. We don't need to cooperate with ICE. And this is what you're getting as a result. You're getting blatant lies. But hey, people feel safer and crime's down.
John, you don't think that Jessica Tisch is just an amazing police investigator? You don't think that she's just so amazing they had to make a commissioner? Come on. She's a brilliant police mind.
Well, her strategy, she labeled out her strategy for us, and it was all about the numbers. So if I was to ask you, Eric or Marlon, what have you done to stop retail theft? you're going to lay out an actual strategy from me. You're not going to give me percentage points. You're going to say, well, I have the precincts going out, conducting video canvass. I have them searching for the known perpetrators. We keep the known perpetrators in the database. Oh, sorry. Did I say database? Oh, sorry. We don't want to be racist here. We don't want to be racist, but you're going to be able to tell me an actual strategy. There has been no presentation of how crime miraculously has came to these historic lows, other than what was been presented on this podcast time and time again. When actual crimes happen, they're misreported, and it's being misreported. And then, hey, let's not also thank the great multiplier, our good friend Jack Frost, January Cop of the Month.
Yeah. Last go around, when you played the Tisch interview, she said that she made a comment that we haven't been hurt by the NYPD not working with ICE. And to that, I want to say maybe she needs to go take a walk on Roosevelt Avenue again, because they've been definitely hurt by the influx of sex traffickers over there, and foreign sex workers. So I don't know where she's coming from with that statement. But something I'd also like to point out here is that it's been reported by a couple of sources already that Kathy Hochul is facing trouble finding a running mate for her lieutenant governor. And according to, this is from the Post, but it was already reported by the NY1. And according to them, she's been turned down already twice by both Donovan Richards and Jamal Bailey.
I don't believe that, by the way. I think it's total. I think it's total fluff, and I think it's total misdirection. I don't believe it.
It could be, but both of them point to a room that Tisch could slide around into. It seems to me either if this is bogus or not, it's priming. It's giving Tisch an opportunity here, or they're slowly feeding it to us and pre-programming us to accept Tisch taking on that spot.
Well, here's the thing: is like she should have already announced who her lieutenant governor is going to be, and the fact that she hasn't, like, they need some misdirection on why she hasn't. Oh, she's having trouble. Oh, and then it was like, and then what you heard from Bernadette Hogan is, well, she only ever really asked one person. And look where this is coming out from too. Look at the this is the New York Tisch Post. It's
yes, and yes, great point, John. Great point. Yeah, so I think something is there definitely afoot here, and the situation is it couldn't be any more pre-programming going on here. But like we said, if crime is down, why are perps emboldened to do what they're doing right now? The two things don't add up to me. And considering the lax prosecution that's been going on in New York City, I'm very skeptical of those numbers.
Well, we often have pointed out on this network numerous times, especially the incident that was in Queens that was not properly documented, where there was just mass anarchy. There was the incident in Queens where it was just they were terrorizing residents there, and they were blowing stuff up, putting fires. It was documented as misdemeanors. And then you had the incident in Staten Island where someone was shooting at a house, and that was documented. That wasn't documented properly either. And these are just random cases. These are random cases that have popped up publicly. So just think about how many cases we are not aware of, right? Because the actual audits themselves are random. By the end of year's time, they're random audits that get reported to the FBI. So the NYPD, especially led by Jessica Tisch, has done a great job of playing exactly what you said, John, CompStat magic, and hiding crimes. It's manipulation of statistics. And when we talk about percentages, it's very easy to misrepresent and mischaracterize crime. And when you do so, you just say, oh, these are misclassifications. We've taken a look and we've reclassified them. But what ultimately that does, it actually creates an endangered society for New York City, especially for the fact that if things are not getting documented, the police department is not getting a full picture. So going back to what she said, it's interesting how vague that observation was, and her boasting about crime being down, and especially their approach now to retail theft. She didn't tell you what their approach is. She just told you they're investigating and making arrests. And I'd like to know how you're doing that, right? And that's kind of what you alluded to, John, is how are you investigating these cases? What are you doing now that was different before? And if you are making a different approach, why would you have to? If there was no issues before, and we always heard that quality of life was great in New York City, crime is not out of control. If there were no issues before, why would you have to take an approach and now start to investigate them? Because in order to investigate something to make arrest, the crime has to be there. There has to be some criminal activity going on, especially when it comes to retail theft, because retail theft is kind of black and white. There's no there's no pseudonyms. It either has to be done or not. So just more information being gaslit. Someone put here that Jessica Tisch is a civilian. Yeah, absolutely. She has zero police experience, but somehow the elites and everyone on both sides have put Jessica Tisch on this pedestal that she's like God's given gift when it comes to being an analyzer and being in charge of the most prestigious law enforcement agency in the entire world. At least it was. It was the go-to policing. But now where we're at right now is absolutely disgusting. I think we all know, we've all worked in the police department, active and retired, you know, especially right now, we're talking about Arctic freezing temperatures in January across the entire nation, where people can't even go outside right now. We can't even go outside right now, and yet the only ones that were outside was the cops in the sub-freezing temperatures. Crime is not down. There's no doubt about it. The perception versus reality, the campaign, this narrative has gone on way too long. And exactly, people do not, as I said earlier, people don't need data. They don't need numbers. They know what they feel, and they feel it in New York City. And New York City is just out of control. And John, I agree with you 100%, brother. There's no doubt in my mind that information that was documented by Viral News, those two perpetrators on mopeds, there's no doubt about it. In that area at that time, no doubt I would put my money on that there were illegal military age males. And that being documented as a misdemeanor should also tell you what's going on in the police department. We're not talking about just at the low level at the command. We're talking about this is going throughout the entire police department. The message is clear. The message is clear to actually misclassify and not report and classify crimes properly. It's going from the top down to the bottom and back to the top. And this is systemically driven throughout the police department because it's driven by the leadership.
So, you know, and another thing when we talk about not working with ICE and Jessica Tisch saying that this isn't an issue for New York City or for public safety. I mean, look at what I have up on the screen right now. Iced out. New York City criminal justice system dropped the ball on release of violent, illegal felon, not migrant, right? Not migrant, illegal, right? So, and what happened is this guy was arrested. He's in New York City courts. He has a warrant for rape. For rape. The ICE has a detainer on him, and the courts release him. In the court now says, in the NYPD, the court says, as per their notes, the NYPD left a note that the ICE detainer and the warrant is not to be honored. So the court just releases the guy. Feds grab him outside the courthouse, and they tell him. But this is a major problem here. So now we have a guy who's in custody. Who's in custody for committing crime against Americans, against New York City residents, against innocent women, against innocent young girls. And he's in our system, and we're releasing him back onto the street because we don't want to work with ICE because they're so bad and they're so evil. I mean, and we're going to sit here and pretend like this doesn't have an effect on public safety. We're really going to sit here and pretend. You know, we just talked about the scooter thing, and I just want to go back 1 second. Like we just talked about that, and like her pretending that that's not a result of not cooperating with ICE. How many of these guys have they locked up on scooters for minor crimes that have ICE detainers that they never let ICE because, hey, we can't, because it doesn't make us safer, because ICE creates fear and anger in communities, right? Like that's what she's saying. And right now, you know, I know John Shell 3 years ago told you they solved the pattern of males robbing people from scooters. But right now, as it sits, the NYPD is investigating a huge citywide pattern of males robbing people off of scooters. Does anyone think these people are legal? Does anyone think that? I mean, this is why you cooperate with ICE, because I have a great plan on how to solve. I have a great plan on how to stop that pattern, and this is how it goes. Right? You drive around, you look for males on scooters, you look at the time period in the areas where these robberies are happening, and you look for any violation of the law whatsoever. Right? Any violation of the law whatsoever. You ran a red light, you drove on your cell phone, you got no helmet on, the scooter's not registered. Whatever it is, you're driving with one hand on the scooter, you have multiple males on a scooter when it's only a one passenger, or it's a two passenger and you have three, doesn't matter. Whatever you want to say, the light's not working, they didn't use the turn signal, whatever it is, right? And you stop and you detain those males for a short-term investigation, and you determine if, in fact, they have an ICE detainer. And if you do, you send them back to the country that they snuck in from. It's that simple. And guess what? You know what's going to happen? Robbery patterns are going to drop significantly. Victims are going to drop significantly. And then you could focus on crime that we didn't have here when Eric Adams, Joe Biden, and the rest of the Democrats decided they were going to import third world crime into New York City, because that's what's happening. This isn't such an easy thing to solve. And instead of trying to solve it, what they're doing is they're trying to pretend it's not happening. No. Everything's good. Crime's down. You're at historic lows. No. Illegals commit crimes at a less rate than Americans. None of this is true. None of this is proven, and so should any of this rhetoric be coming out of someone who swore an oath before God, before their God, they swore an oath that they were going to uphold the laws of this land and they were going to provide public safety for the people in New York City. And instead, what they want to do is drive home a political narrative and demonize another law enforcement agency. She has no business in policing. And I personally think she's a lot worse than Brian O'Hara. I think she's on the same level, and I think her rhetoric is a lot worse. I don't know if Brian O'Hara is sitting there saying crime's down, crime's down. I don't think he is. I don't think he is. I think he's got his tail between his legs, and he's just getting dragged around the yard holding Mayor Fry's pocket. She is willingly going out there and doing this, and you could clearly see when she talks about crime, conscience is getting the better of her. I don't like what I'm seeing. I don't like what I'm hearing. It doesn't make any sense logically, and it's insane that our conservative media, who supposedly support ICE and who all supposedly support the Trump administration and supposedly don't want any more illegal crime happening and supposedly want to be able to shop in their own CVS and don't want to get robbed by from illegal males on scooters, supposedly you would think that there would be a little bit of pushback. A little bit, but there isn't, because you don't actually have a media in America, because the First Amendment is under severe attack as we speak.
Yeah, well, you don't. You really don't have a media anymore, because most mainstream media are owned by the elites, the same people who are in her network. And you've mentioned prior instances where these articles that were supposed to drop suddenly disappeared, and it's because phone calls were made, and again, it's important to keep in mind that Tisch, I didn't realize just how much weight that family holds until I started digging into it. And again, her family is tied into like some of the biggest industries in America, and not just media, because something you guys should know, Lawrence Tisch, was a big media mogul back in the day. And Lawrence Tisch was her grandfather, and the family has positions in both the banking industry, the military industrial complex, again, the media. It's her family has a lot of power and an influence over the city. And because of that, they could weaponize that influence and you're never going to get the full truth from the media that we have now. The only way you get the truth is from independent media, and hopefully, like I always hope that some of these reporters would grow some balls and decide to go out on their own too, because working for the Post, establishment papers like a Post, they're always going to prevent you from reporting on certain aspects of city government and the power behind the city government. But I was going to say that, never underestimate Democrats' ability to create the same problems that they're now trying to run away from or cover up, because, this whole illegal immigrant problem was a problem that was pushed by the Democrats. And now look, like John just mentioned, all the robberies, and again, they need you right now not to talk about that. And they need you they need a new social movement on par with what happened during the Summer of Love, so that you're not talking about that. You're not talking about the costs of those illegals, and you're not talking about the fiscal consequences of paying for those illegals now, and the outbound migration it's caused to the middle class in New York State. And they most certainly don't want you talking about all the structural deficits that are facing New York State in the coming years. And again, it's not just New York City who has a $12 billion deficit, but the state has a lot of gaps in its funding. And those gaps are going to become more visible as we get to 2027 and 2029, just like how they are now talking about the gaps in the city's budget. When we get to 2027, they're going to be talking about the gaps in the state budget, but they don't want you talking about it now, though, because if you were to talk about it now, every part of the state outside of New York City would become red.
It's interesting to me that I think, first of all, I'll take that bet also. I would bet that Jessica Tisch is going to run for lieutenant governor also. And I think she's foreshadowed that quite some time right now, for several months. And she says she stands with Kathy Hochul. She's been pretty much moving in lockstep right now. And what did Kathy Hochul say about ICE? You know what she said? According to ABC News, Kathy Hochul said that ICE is she completely demonized them, and what she referred to them as a rogue organization, right? That ICE is rogue. We're talking about a law enforcement agency. I mean, how dare you? You're the governor of New York State, and you refer to a law enforcement agency as rogue. So we know exactly, and that's why I think Bruce Blakeman's right and says that Kathy Hochul is the most pro-criminal governor in this entire country, right? Hands down, there's no doubt about it. You could argue about Newsom, but I think that Kathy Hochul, it takes the number one spot. So with Bruce Blakeman, I agree. And Jessica Tisch stands with Kathy Hochul. And what's interesting also, right? If we actually just look at logic, right? Logic would tell you that if someone has an ICE detainer and they commit a crime, well, they go through a process, right? They get afforded their right of due process, right? So there would be two proceedings there. One is a criminal proceeding for the crime that is alleged, right? You're innocent until proven guilty. And the second is a civil hearing to determine deportation or not. And there's an administrative judge. There's a civil hearing. There's due process in this. And my point is, there is due process in that. And if you don't believe in America, and if you don't believe in due process, then why are we even making arrests? Why are we even arresting violent criminals then? Because they're innocent until proven guilty also. She talks about civil proceedings when it comes to ICE. Well, yes, in a civil proceeding, if you're an ICE detainee, you get due process. You have the right to a judge and you have the right to a hearing. There's a different threshold there because it's civil. But it's when I say that and we talk about parallels, then why are we actually making arrests? Where someone's innocent until proven guilty. You're going to get due process there as well. So the ideology just doesn't make sense. I don't understand why there would be any pushback. Excuse me. If we have an illegal military age male committing a violent crime and they have an ICE detainee, why would we not want further probes and have further indication that this is someone that could actually be held in jail or even deported, right? Because a problem and Jessica Tisch often talks about it, is the revolving repeat offender system that we have, right? Well, if someone's an illegal military age male and they're a repeat offender and the jails constantly let them out, and at least with an ICE detainment, possibly they could be deported. Well, isn't that an additive strategy to reduce crime in New York City if you really care about New York City residents? Again, I just don't think that this meets logic, and it shows you that it's politics over policy, and it's every time. Just look at the optics; it's right in front of our faces.
Yeah, and you know, we've been hearing for so long, man, so long that this is an issue that's been solved, and yet it just pops up in the news over and over and over again. Here, I'm just gonna walk you through real quick. Let's walk through this. Here's John Shell. This is, I believe, this is 2023, and he's the chief of patrol here. So what he did there, right? So this is 2023. What he did there is like he was like dazzling Dr. Phil with all these facts, like he's this great investigator. I'll just give you a little. When I was in crime and when I was the FIO, and there was ever a platoon commander meeting came up, the lieutenants, like, great guys, but they didn't really give a shit about crime. I'm not gonna lie. Like the patrol lieutenants, they were busy with a lot of other things. They were like, "Hey, John, what's going on my tour? What's going on my tour?" I'm like, "Oh, you're getting this. You know, this is who we think it is. This is who we're going after. This is who we collared last month. You know, this is what's happening. This is the new pattern you're having. Oh, okay, thanks." And then they would come back from the platoon commander meeting. They're like, "Thank you. The chief loved it." Because they just fed that whole thing. "Oh, no, yeah, it's good. You know, this is what we were getting. We got the guy. We solved it. It's over. You don't see it anymore. Don't worry about it." Let's just go through last year. Let's go through last year. What just stories on mopeds. Let's take a look at this real quick. So here we go. Cop search for trio and scooters and rash of robberies in Queens. Crime pattern, right? This is last year. This is 2025, right? So this is 2025. Who else we got? We got July 23rd, 2025. Armed scooter robberies sought in Manhattan, Bronx. Criminal pattern, right? I swear, it's crazy because I thought it was only one guy and we got him 2 years ago. But, you know.
It disappeared, John. Disappeared.
Yeah. Look, here's another one. Here's December 4th, 2025. Moped riding thieves wanted for at least 8 robberies, New York City police. You know, here's another one. It must have just came back. He must have crossed the border again. July 5th, 2025. Police warn of string of jewelry robberies by suspects on scooters. Like, you could literally do it and go on and on and on and on. And it's just story after story after story. And yet you have a police commissioner telling you it's not a big deal that we don't cooperate with ICE and we have no issues with crime. Yet you have major third world crime pattern occurring in New York City every day, including out in the cold. But hey, don't worry, because if you get robbed, guess what? More than likely, we're just going to take the report as a misdemeanor assault anyway. Even if you go to jail, even if you need stitches, even if he sliced you with a knife, doesn't matter. You know, as long as you're not dead, as long as we don't have to report it, then we're good. Like what happened with the where we showed you earlier in the show, where we showed you the newspaper stand that got robbed. There was no choice on why they had to follow through with that. There were cameras everywhere. There was probably media directly on the scene, and they were like, "We got to take this as a robbery." It's the only reason crime scene was there. It was the only reason crime scene came out. It was the only reason they're actually taking that as a robbery. And again, you're not going to see that. You're not going to see that in the mainstream media. Why you're not going to see that in the mainstream media? Because it goes against the entire narrative that they're trying to fill, that Jessica Tisch is this Theodore Roosevelt figure. She came in, she cleaned the department up from corruption, she cleaned crime off, she's going to sweep away to Albany, and then she's going to come back and run for office as the great crime fighter. I see the whole story being built, and I'm not buying it. Sorry, I'm just not.
I saw a couple comments there. Raheem put up they're not going to work with ICE because Trump is in the White House. And that's a good point, Raheem, because remember now, Obama deported 3 million illegals. Okay. And even if you want to add up what Trump did in his first term, and the 329K that so far been rounded up by ICE. We don't know. I don't think an actual figure of how many have been deported so far has been revealed, but it's still not as much as what Obama did. Okay. And I don't recall the Democrats being so vocally anti-ICE when Obama was there, right? But also, Raheem also makes a point that the Tisch family holds a lot of power, but somebody should have told her you weren't a cop. The thing here is, Raheem, that again, that family has exercised a lot of influence over the police department since the 1970s, because again, her father helped co-found the police foundation. And I've mentioned the specific examples where where elites connected to the police foundation get outsized police service, compared to the rest of us. They get police service as a concierge service. Okay. If you forgot your wallet in a taxi cab, intel detectives are not going to go canvassing the city trying to find it. But if you're a wealthy guy whose son forgot his bag in a cab, you make a phone call, intel detectives, 5 or 6 of them are going to go canvass the city looking for it for you. And that's the power of being a donor to the police foundation. And with that, Paleface says, that's an interesting name, Paleface.
Is it Chief Token? Is that Chief Token, Paleface?
Yeah, you got to wonder, right?
Yeah.
Oh, we know who that could be. We know who that is. That's hilarious.
Paleface says, what's with billionaires wanting a title? And the thing is, Paleface, is that we've reached such a point in history where a lot of things are converging at the same time. And one of those things is the public waking up to what's actually going on. There's only so long you can put common man against each other until that runs out. And what I believe we're seeing here is that tactic is running out. I think a lot of people have realized, hey, I voted for Obama and change never came. Hey, I voted for Trump for change never came. They both came into office and not much has changed since then, right? And look at Trump 2.0. I voted for the guy 3 times already, and I'm very unhappy with Trump 2.0 because I voted for things like the list of people connected to the guy with the island that we talked about him on Monday going to jail, and America getting past that, and that isn't happening. So what's happening here is a lot of these billionaires are now moving into government directly, or they're publicly showing you that they're publicly exerting their influence in government because they're afraid of the common man waking up and realizing that how much control they have over our lives and how much that control is making our lives more difficult. So now you're seeing these billionaires push back because they're getting nervous, because when we wake up, they lose money. And a fairer system is one where cronyism and all their inequities doesn't exist, and they don't want that.
I would like to see. So what's interesting to me, you got to laugh, right? I find it funny, right? When John Shell says that, oh, look, they magically disappeared. To me, it's like almost like a game you play with your kids. Like, now you see it, now you don't. Peekaboo, because it's still there. It's a complete lie. Now, what I hear from numerous cops, I speak to cops on a constant basis almost every day. We all do, right? And what a common theme that I hear often from cops, especially in the Bronx. I can't speak for other boroughs right now, but especially the Bronx. Quite a few cops I spoke to said what they're doing in many cases, particularly in some areas where caliper converters are being stolen, instead of taking several reports that they could document a potential pattern, right? Because what did John Shell tell you there? And that's true. That's not a lie. 2 or more issues or 2 or more crimes that are committed by the same group or same person throughout the city can be identified as a pattern. But what if we have an incident that involves several different crimes in a particular area, but we document it on one complaint report? Is that documented as now a pattern? To me, that's not documented as a pattern. So what we're getting is more, to me, I'm alleging there's more misrepresentation, more mischaracterization of crime reporting. And that's what ultimately I believe what's happening right now in New York City. We often talk about it, is that crime reporting is not being documented properly. And when we do that, we don't get the full picture. And we're not investigating patterns because we're not documenting them as patterns. And if I had to predict, I would say that's exactly what's happening. And I believe that the cops are telling the truth, telling me that there's only one documented report for instance, a 3-block or 4-block radius where caliper converters are being stolen, and yet it's documented on one report. And that's not being documented as a robbery, which means we would not have various and numerous detective squads or a citywide unit to get involved in doing the investigations. So just more gaslighting by the NYPD. I said the NYPD was the go-to policing, no longer. But not with the boots on the ground. The boots on the ground are doing their job as presenting. If there's more firearm issues out there, there's more shootings, they'll make more firearm arrests. If there's more robberies, the cops will make the arrest. How they're documented appropriately or not is because of the leadership. That's a failure on the leadership. And I'm sure if we did an actual detailed, serious audit, like an IRS audit, we would find some details that we would be pretty surprised by. And it's a constant theme that's going on right now. It's been going on for several years, and what we see right now, I think Marlon, I think you and I are both surprised because we over talk about that. We thought with Zohran Mamdani, and I think John, you've also said it also, that crime immediately would skyrocket if they have to document it properly. But it appears to me that Zohran Mamdani took Jessica Tisch on to follow the same path and the same template as Eric Adams and continue with this whole crime perception game because nothing has changed. Nothing's changed. It still feels the way it looks. It's still unsafe, and yet they're telling you crime is at all-time lows. So nothing has changed. We told you Eric Adams, Andrew Cuomo, and Zohran Mamdani get the same thing. Nothing has changed. You're right, Marlon. Last thing. With Obama, nothing has changed, and neither has Trump. And unfortunately, that's the template people have learned, is that politics is go along to get along. And ultimately, this wheel just keeps going.
Yeah. I just want to say that when I said that, I actually thought Zohan was what linked Zohan, Cuomo, and Adams was purely ideological. What I've since realized now is it's more than just ideological. They're in the same network, and I think things haven't changed because again, it's the same people. It's just a different face on it. And I talked about it on Monday when I showed you the connections between Zohan's mother and Ghislaine. And it's even more than that. Okay, it's even more than that. I'm not going to go into here, but there are people who have been friends with his mother who have been connected to the Clintons and the same network for 30 years. So it's the same people now, and it's not just, it goes beyond just being purely ideological.
But when you look at Zohran Mamdani, I mean, you gotta laugh, dude. You gotta laugh because he's been bashing the Adams administration, and rightfully so. And shame on anybody that's trying to stand up for the Adams administration, because it was the most disgraceful, incompetent, and corrupt administration in modern New York City history. Like, legitimately, since the end of Tammany Hall and the Tweed Ring, it has been the most disgraceful administration. And I even think they surpassed it, because you would expect to have a certain level of higher integrity today, because just society is just so much less corrupt today than it was in the 1880s. You would think that, we've grown a little bit since then. So anyone that's sticking up for the Adams administration, I got really, like, you really are totally uninformed. You have no idea what you're talking about, or you're ideologically captured, one or the other. I go with the uninformed though. So you have Zohran Mamdani, and he's sitting there and he's saying that Eric Adams didn't budget properly. He left them with a $12 billion budget gap. He didn't pay any of the bills. He didn't follow through on any of his things. He had corruption at the top of the NYPD. The NYPD was systemically corrupt. Everything he said about Zohran Mamdani is negative, So, but yet when it comes to his crime statistics, when it comes to his police commissioner, no, yeah, that's good. Nothing to look into here. You know, everything this administration did was fraught with corruption and lies, except for his crime statistics. We're not gonna look at that. You know, who cares about that? We're just gonna keep those crime statistics as what they are. Why? Because it's convenient for the public safety narrative that he wants to push, right? That these are our neighbors. These are our friends. We're not going to cooperate with ICE. ICE is a rogue agency, and they're all pushing the same thing. And for those of you that are supporting Eric Adams, I think maybe you forgot. The NYPD for 4 years under Eric Adams, has never cooperated with ICE. Not one time. Not one time. Eric Adams ran that the NYPD would never cooperate with ICE. He ran that he was going to give non-citizens the right to vote. He ran that he was going to give illegals health care. He ran that he was going to give illegals everything. He welcomed the entire world to New York City. So I don't understand why people stand up for this guy at all, ever. But he's gone now. And here we are. It's the same grift. We're getting a ton of scooter robberies. What happens when they get the scooter robbery? What happens when they get a guy on a scooter? Who is it? Who is it every time? Every time it's a Hispanic male that's not here legally. Every single time. And what does the NYPD do when they actually catch somebody or they take a report? They misrepresent it. It's either going to be like what Viral News reported yesterday. It's either going to be an assault when in fact it was a robbery, or the other scam they pull is they make it a grand larceny. You got robbed from a dude on a scooter and they said it was a grand larceny. And while grand larceny is still a major, you could hide those grand larcenies, right? Because there's so much identity theft. There's so many grand larceny patterns that you can't solve and you can't do anything with when it comes to identity theft and all this. So they just throw it in there because, hey, it's not a violent crime, right? So it's very easy if you take a robbery and you make it a grand larceny, and robberies are down, and grand larcenies are up. What could you say? Violent crimes down. Sound familiar? You know, that's what's happening. So like, just let's get on Zohran Mamdani. So he unveiled his Department of Community Safety. He said that he was going to, this is the way that it's going to happen. He's going to now basically replace NYPD officers' response to emotionally disturbed individuals because, hey, it's not being done right. And we're not trained professionals on how to handle this. So we've labeled out prior in the past how he said he was going to have the 911 operator dictate whether or not a police response was necessary. So they're talking about a call here. This is Marcia Kramer asking Zohran Mamdani about a call where an emotionally disturbed male was shot by the police after charging them with the firearm. The call originally came over as just an emotionally disturbed male, no weapon, no anything, meaning so that if the 911 operator took that call and they followed what Zohran Mamdani's vision is, there would have been psychiatrists sent there with not unarmed, unprepared, without police officers to that call. So listen to this exchange here because it shows that, they've already set aside $1 billion for this Department of Community Safety, and they can't even answer one basic question about it. Here's Zohran Mamdani when he just gets even the slightest pushback. And that's the thing you have to understand with all of these politicians is they want to shut down free speech and they want to shut down your ability to ask questions and your ability to make fun of them and your ability to get in contact with them. And they want a state-run media because literally all of their ideas fail at one question. This Department of Community Safety is a year in the making, and you can't answer the most basic question. Here it is. Listen to this. It's honestly disgraceful, disgusting, inexperienced. This is Eric Adams. He's actually Eric Adams and Kaz Daughtry 2.0 because he likes to play dress up a lot. He plays dress up more than Eric Adams. He's got his own little new Carhartt everywhere he is. He's wearing a sanitation jacket, Maya. So, Zohran's playing the dress up too. Listen to him explain his Department of Community Safety.
Can I get a clarification about something, Mr. Mayor?
Yeah. So let's make it really quick and then we can have to go.
I really need to have a clarification about this. I know that you talk about the fact that the police can respond in these instances if there's a weapon. But in this case, there wasn't a knowledge that there would be a weapon. There was, the charges were that he was breaking glass. And at the last minute when the cops came in, he pulled a knife out in the kitchen. So how do you determine when the police can arrive if the initial call doesn't say he's got a gun, he's got a knife? What do you do? And then if it turns violent, if a person's there without the ability to stop him, what happens?
So I think there's a few things to say here. One is a lot of this is exactly the focus of the conversations that we're having internally in developing out this Department of Community Safety. Additionally, I want to make clear that a person experiencing a mental health episode does not always have to be served first or exclusively by a police officer. It is important for us to have all of the options available, and that's exactly what we're looking at.
So he can't answer the question. So he says, "Oh, this is what we're looking at." She asks him, "Like, well, what are you going to do? What are these people going to do when they show up and the guy's armed with a knife and he's attacking them with a knife?" Oh, this is something that we're exploring. So he can't answer the question, and then he goes right back to the rhetoric of, those people don't need to be served exclusively by the NYPD. Like, people are going to die as a result of this idiot and his policies, and as a result of Jessica Tisch and the media co-opting all of this. Crime's down, everything's safe, our neighbors, nothing's happening, ICE is bad. Like this is the epitome of everything that is wrong with this country. They hated that question. You've seen from the day they didn't even want to give Marcia Kramer a chance or an opportunity because she does ask hard questions, unlike a lot of people out there in the media.
Yeah. So the incident being referenced there is a recent shooting in Queens, and the perp, rather, the EDP, the emotionally disturbed person here. This is the knife that he the video you're seeing is from the officer's body camera as they first entered the house. You can see it on the video. He immediately picks up the knife and starts approaching him, and the cop tells him to drop it a couple of times. And shout out to those officers because that officer, because he didn't have tunnel vision during that moment, and he was cognizant enough to try to use the door to create some space between him and the EDP, and it failed, but he bought himself some time, and he had to do what he had to do to stop the threat at that time. But I want to know how a civilian who's untrained and has no protection, has no defensive tools, how are they going to respond to this right here? And if they're not trained, are they going to be aware of their surroundings enough to be able to use something like the door to give themselves some space? I don't think so. So if your people are watching this, I hope you give these guys some good health care, because they're gonna need it here. Okay. And also, by the way, we talked about it on Monday, how these civilians are going to show up in very informal attire, right? They're gonna show up looking like they just got off the street, with not the formal, without wearing a formal uniform that indicates they're a government representative, right? And are we thinking that someone like him is not going to be agitated by those people? When you have a stranger who's coming into your house saying that they're from the government when they don't look like what we've been conditioned to believe is a agent from the government, a formal uniform. Then he's not going to be agitated. I don't know. But again, I hope they have great health care, Zoanne, because they're going to need a lot of it for situations like this.
So let's talk about pure bullshit. Why don't we get this guy a Dunsky hat? And I'm talking about Zohran Mamdani, because what complete idiot, this is bullshit. His whole entire campaign was based on a social worker apparatus that's going to respond to emotionally disturbed persons. Why? Because the cop, the man with the gun, is evil. And I can tell you right now, we all know we've been to emotionally disturbed person calls that are probably the most unpredictable and could be the most violent. Any indication, any information that's actually given by the 911 dispatcher is just a complete mystery when you respond to an emotionally disturbed person. You don't know what you're getting. You have no idea. And I've been to some calls, and John and Marlon, I'm sure you have also, young on the job in uniform, where we were told it's a voluntary emotionally disturbed person. They're pretty compliant, and you get there and they have crazy eyes, and 2 seconds things are out of control. Police officers are trained to stop threats. They're trained to give at least 21 feet when someone has a knife. A knife requires lethal force, not a clipboard, right? Because that was their plan. Their plan was to have social workers respond with clipboards because emotionally disturbed people need help. And emotionally disturbed people who have knives are violent perpetrators who are emotionally disturbed as well. Anyone that's involved in a violent situation is emotionally disturbed. They would not be taking the action if they weren't emotionally disturbed. So this is absolutely ridiculous. And you can see how he's squirming through the question because he has absolutely no response. This was a great opportunity for Zohran Mamdani in a particular case like this to lay out his social worker Department of Community Public Safety plan and tell us why it's effective. When would the cop respond? When would the social worker respond? And just complete vague response. There was nothing there. It was squirming because there was never a plan. There is no plan. The plan is just for you to demonize the cop and have the civilian complaint review board make the determination who's right or wrong, and have 2 good police officers. And you're right, Marlon. Shout out to those police officers for doing a great job in doing the best with the tactics, with the case presented to them, right? That's why it's so important, the Supreme Court case, Graham versus Connor. It's what's happening in real time. And in real time, those cops were met with lethal force. You bring a firearm to a lethal force incident with a knife, not a clipboard. So please tell me what type of training these social workers will get. Will these clipboards have some ballistic shield? Will they protect themselves with these clipboards? Because other than that, this is absolutely ridiculous. And again, I'll say it. Anyone involved in a domestic violence incident, anyone involved in committing a crime, they are emotionally disturbed. They are emotionally disturbed. But what he's talking about is something completely different. And now he's kind of backtracking from it. What do you say? Oh, well, sometimes it calls for the cops, sometimes it doesn't. Okay, so when are those times? And the reality is, you can never say what those times are, because we all know every time you respond and there's a call, a 911 call, if you're active retired police officer, you're highly aware of this. If you're a police enthusiast or someone else you just don't understand, I can tell you this. Every call is a mystery. The 911 dispatchers do their best job of providing information to give to the cops and just have a preliminary sum of substance what may be happening. But it's a complete mystery. And when that door opens, you have no idea what you're walking into. And these things turn violent quickly. And if we have social workers respond first, in my opinion, we're actually creating situations where we're escalating it further. And I've jokingly said this before. And I think their plan ultimately would have cops wait 1 block away and just like, okay, is it okay to come now? Because the reality is, if social workers respond and get themselves in a violent situation, we've now put the cops in a more violent situation, because we dragged them into a situation that has already escalated, where they may have their first approach and their first attempt at de-escalation, maybe the use of lethal force. Again, absolutely ridiculous. Get this guy a Dunsky hat. Just completely, absolutely moron. Has no idea how life works. Just absolutely ridiculous.
Yeah, I mean that is, I mean, $1 billion, $1 billion is going to this. He can't even answer a simple question. I mean, that is disgraceful. Again, you should know that cold, right? If I ask you anything about the Department of Community Safety, you should be giving me a 2-hour lecture on the slightest part of anything that I ask you about. Well, this is and nothing. Again, what's the strategy? The strategy is, let me go back to my narrative of cops shouldn't be the first people to service. It's like, dude, you lost, bro. You're completely lost. Other thing that came up in the news, a police sergeant who, we reported on this a while back. The police sergeant who threw a cooler at a fleeing suspect. Fleeing suspect was on a scooter. Sergeant hit him with a cooler. Suspect fell off the scooter and died as a result. So he had his closing arguments. Again, I don't think anybody's there for the sergeant at all. Do I think it was the best thing that you could do in the moment? I don't know. I mean, we weren't there. I wasn't there. I don't know what I would have done in the moment, but clearly he's trying to apprehend a felon in that moment. The man's fleeing on a scooter on a sidewalk filled with women, children, elderly, cops. So clearly, I mean, you could sit there and reasonably articulate, was the sergeant in fear of serious physical injury and death towards himself or another, and he deployed a non I don't want to say not non-lethal force, but like an unconventional. He deployed an unconventional way of stopping the perpetrator. I could see it. I don't believe that the sergeant intended to kill anybody. I think that, again, the suspect died as a result of his own fleeing. I don't think that, I don't celebrate the guy's death, but he was a felon. He was committing a felony. He was fleeing on a scooter on a busy New York City street, and the sergeant tried to stop him. He definitely did not try to kill him. So, I'm praying for the sergeant. I don't know the outcome. I don't know what you guys think about it. But I mean, as from what I could say, I could clearly say that someone driving down a block on a scooter fleeing from the police, any reasonable person should fear serious physical injury or death.
Yeah. Well, including the person riding a scooter bike on a sidewalk. I mean, riding a dirt bike on a sidewalk. I mean, the problem with New York City in general is that, and liberal cities in general, is that they want to take away personal responsibility. I mean, that if you're driving recklessly, okay, you're putting your life in jeopardy too, because you don't know, you're on a sidewalk with a lot of obstacles, and including people that could get hurt from you riding your bike on the sidewalk. And I think that there has to be some sort of responsibility placed on a perp too for doing that. I mean, like I said before in a prior episode, when we talked about what happened with the Renee Good, her last name, in Minnesota, is that FAFO, when you F around and you find out, it is a cautionary tale. And FAFO was really about responsibility, because if you do dumb things, then you're also putting your life in jeopardy. And in the case of riding a dirt bike on a sidewalk, you're putting your life in jeopardy. You don't know what's on the sidewalk. Huh?
You said FAFO?
Yeah, FAFO.
Fuck around, find out.
Yeah. Yeah, I try not to use the F word too many times on here, even though you can after 15 minutes on the show. You really can. YouTube says if you do it in the first 15 minutes, they're gonna get demonetized. But I'm trying here not to use it.
I didn't know that. So I only got to wait 15 minutes. I got to put a timer up.
Yeah. John's gonna be at 15 minutes, 1 second. It's gonna be.
All right, I can be myself again. Huh?
Yeah. Good. John's got to pretend he's someone else for the first 15 minutes. Okay, here we go. You just gave him the green light, brother.
Yeah. So Angry John needs 15 minutes before
it's 15 minutes of fame.
Yeah, but that's the thing, it's just personal responsibility, to do stupid things, and you're putting your life in jeopardy, and you're putting others' lives in jeopardy. And one of those stupid things is riding a dirt bike on the sidewalk in a congested city like New York City is. Yeah.
I agree with you. I used to say that often, working in housing, and I would say I didn't understand. I say, okay, some people live in poverty. Some people, housing is a real mixed bag. Some people do live in legit poverty, but some don't. Some live there generation upon generation, just take advantage of the system. But I used to have a hard time saying, and I grew up in some rough neighborhoods, and I grew up poor, but you still be clean, and you still have personal accountability and responsibility. And I would say often, like, why do people piss in their own elevators? It used to drive me crazy. Like, I would see young men literally piss in find them. They would come out of the elevators, piss in the elevator, and they lived on the same floor. You couldn't make it to the bathroom. You couldn't make it And if you really had to go that bad, piss in a bottle or something. Like, why piss in your own elevator? I mean, that's your home. And I think the reason, at least for me, and I thought that there was no accountability, there was no responsibility, right? If people were actually held accountable for taking action, a sense of community there, like, hey, come down on someone for doing that, or actually, where they actually get a summons, or actually have people evicted from apartments, then maybe they would think twice, because there was no accountability and personal responsibility. And not for everyone, but there was a good majority of people there that really decimated their own elevators, threw garbage in their own floors. I just didn't understand it, right? This is your home. And it really takes accountability and responsibility. So, Marlon, I think you're 100% right. Now, when we talk about this NYPD sergeant that deployed a cooler, I think the problem with the perception of the public is it never leaves room for adapting and to overcome, right? Something I learned in the Marine Corps, right? You want to adapt and overcome. And that means using the resources that in or around you to accomplish mission. And sometimes we don't give cops the credit. And I think people assume that they have to use just what's on their belt, whether it's a firearm, whether it's a handcuffs, pepper spray, taser, something that they have. But I do believe that cops should be able to use sources that are in and around them. And it's something that I found myself during the riots, and especially the ones in the South Bronx on Brook Avenue, when we had a large crowd coming down. They were coming down and they were coming uphill. I'm sorry, they were coming downhill. And because they were coming downhill, we couldn't see everything that was happening on the stuff that was getting thrown at the cops. To get a better vantage point, I had jumped on top of a car so I could actually see what was going on. And I was actually able to see that there was 3 perpetrators in the crowd trying to pick up a wheelbarrow from someone's backyard to throw it at the cops. And during my Civilian Complaint Review Board investigation, one of my many, they're like, well, who taught you that? Who said you could get on top of a car? Well, I said, there's no actual training. You don't get on top of a car at the police academy, but I do believe that they teach you to use the resources that are in and around you, and you adapt and overcome to your situation to get a better vantage point. Obviously, at that point, during a riot, a large crowd, I'm not going to deploy ESU if they even are close by to bring me a ladder. At this point, if these resources are in and around me. So I believe the sergeant used the resource that was available to him to try to stop the threat. Now, we have to ask ourselves, did that perpetrator commit suicide, or did the sergeant actually contribute to their death? Because when people don't comply with the police department, you're putting your own life in your hands. This is not a mat. This is the real life. This is the real world. And I do believe that people should be able to use their resources. And the other thing, John, you kind of mentioned it, and I don't agree with this. I don't think anything should be labeled as non-lethal force, because any force can turn into something lethal. As simple as just deploying a strike. If you're involved in a physical confrontation, anything could be deadly. So I just think that we don't put enough emphasis and understand that police officers have the right to use resources that are in and around them. And to me, that's called improvisation, and it's called smart. It's intelligent.
Yeah, I saw a comment in there from Chief Lukash about the 1998 incident where a NYPD cop struck a perp with his radio, and the cop had to do 35 months. Let me get this off the stage. Yeah. So the officer Craig Yokmik is this is the incident. I'm not, I could argue that riding your dirt bike on a sidewalk is a lot more dangerous than riding a bike on the street, because in trying to flee from the cops, imagine if he had struck a child or even an adult or elderly person on the sidewalk. I'm not sure those two are the same incidents, but and I agree with Eric that improvising it's not quite the same as say you're pulling out your firearm and shooting the fleeing perp. I think there's an argument to be made that what the guy on the dirt bike was doing is inherently a danger to the public at large, riding on the sidewalk. Fleeing at full speed from the cops on a sidewalk in such a busy neighborhood.
All right. Yeah. I mean, look, I pray for the guy. I worry about him. I think, I think that I wouldn't want to be in his shoes, man. And again, I don't think he meant to kill anyone. And I don't necessarily think he did anything too wrong either. I think, he definitely did try to stop people, and I think he did try to save people, and that's why he tried to stop the guy from driving like a maniac on the scooter down the side. And this just goes to show you really got to think about, dude. You got to think about what you're doing and what you're willing to do out there. I spoke to someone yesterday, supervisor, and he was saying, hey, look, I'd rather you guys critique me on the podcast than me lose my career at this point, my pension. He's like, he goes, I got to be honest. He goes, and I was a guy I worked with. I worked with a lot. And he goes, I got to be honest. He goes, it's just, I'm really second guessing myself now. I'm really second guessing police work. I'm really second guessing being out there. Terrible. I mean, I hate to hear it, because I always would say throughout my career, I would always tell myself, like, the minute I say I can't do this anymore, I'm not doing it. Like, I'm just gonna retire. I'm gonna put my paper in, like, and because it's so dangerous out there, man. And so for you to second guess yourself and think you're gonna get fired for doing the right thing, really, really, really sad state of affairs. And we're gonna get into some of that legislation in a little bit. Before we do, I just want to do this segment for Mike Smith, because Mike, we got some information yesterday I think that you should hear about. So this comes from your favorite chief in the New York City Police Department, Levon Holly. So Levon Holly was just promoted to deputy chief, and he was sent to the Detective Bureau's citywide task force division. So you would think, what are you gonna do? Like, what's your first steps as a commanding officer of that? He replaced assistant chief Jason Savino. Jason Savino had an office in One Police Plaza, and he had about 2 admin people assigned to him. So he had moved on. I forget where he went. But Levon Holly, one of his first acts is he walks into Detective Bureau Manhattan North's narco building and basically tells narco and homicide they got to get out. You can't be in that building anymore or you got to find something else out, because I'm bringing 15 of my admin people here. I mean, I've got it from multiple sources. It's definitely legit. People are really pissed about it. They're like, this guy just gets promoted, and the first thing he thinks to do is get out of One Police Plaza and get some office up in Manhattan North that encompasses a PSA. And, you're kicking narco guys out, and you're kicking homicide guys out. And why are you doing that? And when I heard it, the first thing I thought is better commute, and you don't want the watchful eye of One Police Plaza on you, and if that's the case, the commute I could see, but the watchful eye of One Police Plaza, I think that's a problem. I think, these guys, like I said, they get promoted and everything's self-serving. I love John Shell, because I was in building maintenance, I think, like a little bit over a year. And the thing that like stuck with me there was, like, the executives, like, they thought they were playing home and garden in the New York City Police Department. They never cared about anything else other than their office, getting their offices painted, where I'm going to stay. I need my own locker room. I'm this level. I'm that level. I'm this. I need that. And I'm like, myself, I'm like, I never care about any of that. Like, you could stick me in a closet or wherever I got to do. I just need a computer that I could get my work done, and that's it. I need a computer. I need locker rooms for my guys, maybe a place for them to rest. I always put what everybody else needed above what we need, of what a supervisor needs. But these guys, like, it's sick, man. You're bringing 15 admin people with you. You're kicking people out of offices, all to make your life easier and to hide from One Police Plaza. What do you guys think about that? Is this something you would do? Like, just walk in and just start kicking people out?
Yeah, no way. But then again, I was a actual cop, and this guy was not a cop at all.
What does that say right there?
17 coppers.
What that is, dude. Levon, if you're watching this, bro, You are tender hands. You're Levon, tender hands Holly, bro. That is disgraceful. I'm sorry. Like that is disgraceful. I don't care if he was a cop 5 years. There is no way he wasn't actively trying to not make arrests. And he doesn't even have a felony. He's got 2 violations arrest. He never even made a felony arrest. And the dude's a chief.
Yeah.
This should never happen, dude. Who promoted this guy? Jessica? Like, seriously? I'd be like, dude, you got to go back. You got to start over.
Yeah, I thought Tariq's collars was embarrassing with his 22, but this guy is like, this is next level. 17 collars. Hey, Levon, if you're watching this and you have more than 17 collars, I think you should make a phone call to ITB and have them update this, okay? Because that's embarrassing. Okay, I can go find a rookie now 6 months out of the academy who probably has more collars than this. Okay, and you're a chief. Okay, so none of this is a surprise. Anytime you see this type of behavior, go look at their arrest record. I bet you it's gonna be like this. Because guys who are actually cops and who are active would never do this. They would never do this. You know, they would never have like a army of admin people. You know. This follows the same pattern we see over and over and over again with this job lately, and just like that pattern, we see a pattern of fast promotions here. Look at this rocket fuel promotions here, right? In less than
rocket
10
fuel,
years,
baby.
In less than 10 years, he's gone from deputy inspector to deputy chief. Okay, I mean that's. For a guy, this guy must be the most brilliant guy on the face of this earth. Okay, to have 17 collars and being promoted the way he is.
Wait, but think about like how he's getting promoted. 17 arrests. Like if he was in community affairs, or he was in ESU, or he was in aviation, or he was in something that like didn't involve investigations, that which he clearly never did, or didn't involve like actual operational police work, then maybe. But how is this guy telling someone how to investigate a case when he doesn't even know how to make a shoplifting collar?
Yeah,
and he couldn't go to Target and investigate a shoplifting collar, draw it up with an ADA, and have to actually sit down in a courtroom. How is he in charge of the detective bureau, the citywide task force division? And then you're kicking dudes out that are doing homicide investigations and narco investigations so that you and your admin staff could hang out and do your nails. Because, you know, I'm not going to lie, he does look a little, you know, he looks a little like loose and, you know.
Yeah. I'm telling you, this thing. I think of it. You have detectives who guys who spent like days in commands trying to get up there to become a detective, right? You spend days going from collar to collar to collar trying to get your name out there so you can move on to special ops and then into the squad. And now you're a detective who worked their way to homicide, and this is the guy who's busting your balls right now. Who when you were spending days in the precinct, this guy was running home. Okay, when this is the type of guy who the bosses were asking you to go out and help him find a collar, and now he's giving you orders. It's embarrassing, completely embarrassing.
Hiding, and he's still hiding. He was hiding as a cop in 1999, the height of broken windows. He was hiding as a cop. You had to have actively go out and try not to arrest people to come up with that little. And so now, and here he is a deputy chief, and he's still hiding. He's moving away from One Police Plaza and going to somewhere where he could get out of the eyes of what's happening. This is disgraceful.
Yeah, John, I'd like to know where's John Shell right now to talk about, what's appropriate to be in a position of leadership. He knocks my 56 arrests, but I got promoted with 5 years on the job. I was still in the Marines at the time. I spent half the time with the police department, half with the Marines, and I still made 56 arrests on patrol back when we were doing 4 different sectors and told not to make any bullshit collars. Almost all the collars I brought in were felonies. So it just shows you Hey, John Shell, if I didn't cut the mustard, how does this guy cut the mustard? How does this guy actually make it to the point that he's at? Failure on leadership. And leadership is the most important, invaluable tool for an organization to either thrive or to break down leadership. Now, are arrests the metric of measure for everything? No, not at all. Not at all. But this is a clear indication. And as John said, 1999, we're talking about at the height of intrusive police work, where we should always be at within the police department. But to have this many arrests, it's an indication also. I mean, even if he got promoted with 5 years on the job and spent half his time also in the military, you could say it probably should be a little bit better. But even with that being said, Mike Smith, I hope that you're watching this. Shout out to you, brother. And this says what the NYPD thinks of different units right now in the police department. Because if we're promoting people like this with rocket fuel and we're not getting the proper leadership in these units, well, we're not serving the department well. And if the cops deserve better. And if we're not serving the cops well, the cops are not serving the public well. It goes hand in hand. Again, failure on leadership, the Eric Adams administration, and under Jessica Tisch, going to Zohran Mamdani, nothing has changed. People are getting promoted by rocket fuel. Cronyism, nepotism lives real hard in the NYPD. I'd like to know who he knows.
Yeah, dude, I'm at a loss for words, honestly. I didn't even look up his collars because I was just like, whatever.
Did you even need to? You know?
But it shows. But it shows. It shows where the mentality comes from. You never did the job, so you don't respect people that do it, and then you bully them around, and then you're gonna get mad that it leaked out. You know what I mean? Dude, it was a lot of people are pissed. Like a lot of people are pissed. And honestly, looking at your collars, I'm pissed because I'm like, how did you excel in the New York City Police Department? What did you do differently than me, Eric O'Malley? I know what you did. You fucking hid. That's what you did. You know, disgraceful. You kissed ass and you hid and you still hiding. It's disgraceful. You know, somebody should put him in check. And where are all the other chiefs in the detective bureau? Where's Kenny? Right? Like if I'm the chief of the detective bureau and I hear this kid just gets promoted and I give him something and he pulls this move, I'm gonna rip him a new asshole. I'm be like, dude, who do you think you are? As a matter of fact, you know what? You're not even staying there. You're gonna come work in my office. You're gonna sit outside my cubicle right there. I want you right outside my desk so I can see you. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I'm telling you, that's you're going after the working guys and you don't respect them. Why? Because you never did what they do. That's why.
You know what? I had to come to. It took me a long time, and I had to come to terms with it. You know, because when I retired from the police department, and I retired, and I'll still say I retired on my own volition, right? I said no longer could I do what I was paid and trained to do. I was offered intelligence. I was offered the squad. I could have stayed. I could have stayed in the police department and been tucked away and hidden just like Holly. And maybe if I sucked the right ass and wore a ball gag, I could probably get promoted by rocket fuel.
If you were light in the loafers?
Yeah. If I was a little light in the loafers, maybe if I painted my nails, you know. But I didn't want to do that. And I said to myself, too, I even remember speaking to Lou Turco, right, John? And I'm like, why did I never go sick? Like, what did that get me? Oh, you know, that's one of the things probably helped you get in special assignment. I'm like, really? You know, there's plenty of times I went to work with broken fingers. I remember one time we were fighting with a bunch of perpetrators trying to get a firearm. I broke my finger in the fight. And I remember I thought I just bruised it up. I just banged up. I'm like, I'll suck it up. I used to tape my fingers together. And I remember I went out with my cousin and a bunch of, he was a fireman, a bunch of firemen. We went to a Jet game over at MetLife. I remember sitting there, he's like, yo, your hand doesn't look good. And my hand was blown up. And there's a bunch of firemen. They're like, why aren't you sick? I mean, these guys go sick for a hangnail. And I'm like, I don't know. I always thought I did the right thing. You know, if you go sick on this job, they give you a hard time, you know. But meanwhile, what did I do? In the end, all I did was get myself fucked up fingers. You know, that's one regret I have is, you know, when I was sick, I would go to work and suck it up. And what did I get for it? Nothing extra, because when I got my CCRBs, nobody stood up for me. So I had to ask myself, and people would tell me all the time, John Mullen, I don't know if they said this to you, like, oh, you know, you got to know which perps to check. You got to know who to get involved with, right? The ones that don't make CCRBs. I'm like, that's not a cop. That's not what a cop does. You go after the crime that's presented to you. You don't pick the person. You don't cherry pick because you don't want to get in trouble. That's not doing real police work. You know, I didn't care if they were 6'7", 7'5", 5'2". If they committed the crime with the illegal firearm, we were going to get them. It didn't matter, right? And my point is, when I said to myself, man, maybe these guys are right. tucked away, hiding, not doing real police work, getting promoted by rocket fuel. I remember sitting there like I'm a sucker. I'm a lieutenant, and I'm meeting all these guys that get promoted. They're captains. They become my XO. I did better than them on the test. And I'm like, wow, who's the idiot here? Am I the idiot? Maybe I'm a dummy. Sit in my office. I did all this good police work. I got these awards. I could scratch my ass with it. I can't get promoted. These guys getting promoted. I'm talking about special operations. To them, it was gibberish. They didn't know what I was talking about. But yet, they were now the ones that made captain. So you know what? But in the end, I can sleep at night. So for me, it's enough. I know who I am. I can sleep at night. And these guys know who they are too.
But Eric, you wouldn't look good with a manicure, dude. You wouldn't look good manicured. I think,
I'm gonna go get one.
What's the over under Levon Holly? What's the over under Levon Holly has manicured nails?
How about feet?
And feet. Yeah, no. What's the over under? Like I say those nails are glossy. I say those nails are glossy.
Well, I gotta tell you what though. When I got back from Iraq, I didn't go on the regular, but I went on a couple times. When I got back from Iraq, my feet were so screwed up, and I went and I got a pedicure and a manicure, man. That was the best feeling ever. Oh my god!
I never did.
My feet were like snake scales, dude. It helped. I don't go on a regular basis, but that was good. So I might want to consider it. I don't know if I get my nails painted, but yeah.
Did they give you the gloss on the nails?
No. No ball gang, none of that. No.
All right.
King Gerbo says, and where's women's panties? Probably.
Oh, you know what else we didn't talk about, and I don't even think we put it out at all. Is do you know that we've come to the end of an era? We've come to the end of an era. John Shell, Kaz Daughtry. I hate to break it to you, khaki pants are no longer authorized in the New York City Police Department.
Goodbye, criminal response team. Yeah. Hey, listen, it's only a matter of time till CRT starts contacting the finance on Phil. They're like, hey, I'm facing a charge right now.
Yep.
I'm indicted, and Kaz won't pick up my phone call anymore.
Yeah, remember that? Remember those guys that were trying to pick fights with us? Which is pretty funny, by the way. They wanted us to go to the rough streets of what was that, Wanta? That fat, stupid captain. What's his name?
I don't even remember.
What a roly-poly. I would have kicked your ass. Oh, my God. So funny. But whatever. Who cares?
So no more khaki pants. Sorry, guys. Those they were a little ridiculous anyway. I never liked the uniform anyway. So I thought it was ridiculous. You just throw these dudes in khaki pants and then you're running them out there. It looked.
First of all, I never even liked khaki pants. I don't even know why they thought khaki pants was cool. I hate khaki pants. I never wear khaki. If anybody does, no problem. Not me. I hate chinos. I don't like those things.
I had to go. I went to Catholic high school for a year, and I used to wear the khakis. But then I was too smart, so they sent me.
Come on, you were wearing Z Cavaricis. Who are you kidding?
They sent me to public school to teach the other kids. So
you were wearing Z Cavs. I know it.
So what else we got? Cop of the Month award, like we said earlier. Cop of the Month awards going to Jack Frost. Congratulations, Jack, keeping crime down in January. Thank you. So so we didn't want to fail to mention that, but I think it's that time of the show, fellas. What do you think? Any other topics before we go to New York City Council?
Let's do it, baby.
Yeah.
All right, so it's my favorite time of the show. What dumb law? What dumb law is New York City Council pushing today? So
you know what, John? This has got to be a thing. Maybe we'll, executive perspective does ask an executive. Maybe this is what we'll do. This will be our thing.
I think so. So, all right. First one, you guys are all familiar with, and we spoke about it numerous times on here. 2026, our good friend Althea Stevens out in the Bronx, city councilwoman, she has renewed her calls to abolish the New York City NYPD's gang database. We've spoke about it at length numerous times about how stupid it is. But the thing that really gets me is that they cannot articulate why they want the gang database abolished. And they do not want a successor database either. They're trying to make this law The gang database actually protects people who are listed in it, gang members' lives. So it does so because if you're listed in the New York City gang database, if the NYPD gang database, there is certain criteria for you to be in there. Basically, you have to be involved with a gang and be actively involved in criminal activity. When you are, you're put in the gang database. That information is not shared with anyone, not employers, not schools, not landlords. It goes nowhere. So it's only used internally by the NYPD. The NYPD does not target you for enforcement. They do not target you and surveil you. They do not do anything towards you other than if you are the victim of a shooting, the victim of an assault, the victim, or you are the perpetrator of that. They run your name in this gang database, and the reason they do that is to prevent further gang violence. What will come up in that gang database is what gang you're a part of, who are your rival crews. And so let's say you were shot as a result, or you shot someone as a result. We put you in the gang database. They run your name. They get all of the data of the crew you're a part of, what rival crew you have beef with, and they deploy resources there to prevent further shootings. Althea Stephen wants that out because 99% of the people listed in the gang database are people of color or black and brown people, which is the exact makeup of the people who are actually involved in gang activity in New York City. So it makes absolutely no sense. What do you guys think about the gang database?
John, I think Rob Lukash has the comment of the day, bro. Comment of the day. Where'd it go? Man, these things are flying in. Basically, well, Rob Lukash said if you could run a mile and a half and you're on the gang database, you should be immediately removed. There it is. Rob, I love you, brother. That's outstanding.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I said it before that this is all austerity measures, because the city doesn't want you arresting people because it costs them money. And they don't want you effectively policing because it's going to cost them more money because you're going to be locking up the people who deserve to be locked up and put away for a while, which is going to cost New York City more money. So I think that's the underlying reason behind all of this fake progressivism, or progressivism, But I also talked about like where this city is going to be in the coming years, and with things like that, you have to really wonder where we're going to end up. I mean, again, we're already hemorrhaging people, and we're hemorrhaging businesses and the middle class in the city, and nobody wants, like, go find any community you want in this city. None of them want gangs in their community, okay? Nobody wants gangs, okay? And everybody wants effective policing and for you to lock up gangs. So by them doing this now is just going to push more people to leave the city and to let the city keep going downhill the way it is right now.
Like, what's the big deal? Technically it's not illegal to be part of a gang. So what's the big deal if you have a gang database? Just keeping a list of people that are involved in legal groups, right? If it's not a big, if gangs illegal, it's not a big deal. Why do we have to have a database to fight against it?
Because City then council, you could throw people in Rikers. Yeah. You don't want that happening now. That's $12 billion there. Yeah.
Mom, we're getting really racist right now. Here we go.
Listen to what Dean Roberts says. He says the joke of the database is when, as a squad detective investigating a shooting or a homicide, you would call gang, and the answer was the same every time. They are not in the database. So it's like, the whole argument. It's just insane, like how they just want to abolish things and pull things down for absolutely no reason. They can't explain it. Again, fail at one question. Why? What's the goal? We're looking into that. We're going to figure out. We got to pass the bill to know what's in it. We got to pass the bill to see how it works. So we could explain it.
I want to know, like, do you think in city council, I don't even think they eat food. I just think they sit there and suck on lollipops. Right? Let me suck on this lollipop and figure out what dumb bill I can come up with today.
Dude, I'm telling you, when they get reelected, they scramble to get a bunch of nonsense together, and they put it together, and then that's what they're going to push on the next 4 years. This is what this girl is going to be working on for the next 4 years. This is what she's going to tweet about. This is what she's going to talk about, and she's going to avoid doing any actual work. It's a joke, dude. It's a part-time job. They are complete failures. I'm telling you, once my kids get older, if I'm still in the mood, I'm going to run for city council. I'm going to go to city council every day, and I'm just going to abuse all of them. I'm going to follow them around with phones. Where are you going today? What are you doing? What are you doing? Let's live from city council, because I'm like, it annoys the crap out of me that like it really does. Like, I'm not saying all of them, but 98% of them useless.
John, you should come up with a bill that if you're a city council person, you had to have a real job. Oh, sorry, you're all gone. Sorry.
Yeah.
None of works.
I'll come up with a bill. You have to stay at work for 8 hours and 35 minutes every day. While you're there, you can't just be drinking coffee and tweeting. You actually have to do work. No protesting on duty. I'll come up with all these bills.
No. You don't want them there for 8 hours, John.
I'll make it like the police department, bro. I want you scanning in. I want to make sure you're not,
I kind of wonder. Honestly, I kind of wonder if someone from the police department went to city council and said, listen, you got to help us out here. Could you stop that Marlon guy from making these memes, please? Could you just stop him? That's all. Oh, no problem. We'll come up with a bill. Don't worry. We'll come up with a bill. We'll stop Marlon quick. Stop him right in his tracks.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I don't want them there for 8 hours, John. I want them there. I want you there for like 2 hours a week. Then we're not going to pay you for the whole week.
Then they get 2 hours salary, $50 an hour. See you later.
Yes.
See you later.
That would be the goal, right?
We'll just do what's minimum wage. We'll do minimum wage.
Martin, you're right. We don't want them to show up. Just stay home. Right. Stay home.
2 hours pay.
We'll contact you on StreamYard. Don't worry.
Mike, I hope you watched the last segment. If not, go back and watch it. We talked about your buddy Holly. So all right. So this is another bill coming out of New York City Council. This is a good one.
It must be brilliant.
This is great. This is just so. This is coming out by Mercedes Narcisse. This is who Athena Clark was running against, and Athena Clark should have beaten. But the people of New York continue to do the wrong thing against themselves. So here you go. A local law to amend the Administrative Code of New York in relation to requiring the NYPD report on a use of force incidents that include an officer displaying or unholstering a weapon. So this was I read this. I was like, I kept reading it because I'm like, wait, what? So I wrote this about it. I said, New York City Council wants NYPD cops to hesitate during life and death encounters. New York City Council member Mercedes Narcisse wants the NYPD to declare unholstering a weapon a use of force. This bill, like the others, incompetently does not define what a weapon is. Is it a firearm? Is it a can of pepper spray? Is it a nightstick? An asp? We don't know.
A scooter?
Anything. A scooter? A cooler? We don't know. We don't know. I said, when would unholstering said weapon be considered a use of force? Do you have to point it at an individual, or is just taking out the weapon considered a use of force that must be documented and stay on the officer's permanent record for all eternity?
There goes clean your gun.
I mean, just think about, if you're on duty and you unholstered your weapon, according to this law, that is a use of force. What I used to do, and I'm sure all you guys do, when I was ever in the bag, what I would do is I would holster and unholster my weapon the first time I got in, like to get myself ready, make sure everything was good. I'm sure you guys did that too, right? Like when you put your uniform on, you holster, you unholster, make sure that you could do it, right? According to this bill, that would be a use of force that would be documented. I said, let's say the officer responds to a 911 call of an apparent burglary. The officers arrive on the scene. They observe a door kicked in. The burglar alarms are ringing. They put over the radio that they arrived and they are entering the building. They take their firearms out and do a sweep of the home to ascertain if the alleged perpetrators are still in the home. The search yields negative results. Do they have to fill out a use of force report? Question mark. Well, according to this bill, yes. And then after a few of these each month, the NYPD will deem the officers a use of force recidivist, place them on monitoring, and this will ultimately have cops second-guessing themselves and lead to the unnecessary and avoidable death of an officer. And I believe the goal of this bill to sum it up, I believe the goal of this bill is to do just in fact that, is to make officers hesitate and to further emasculate the NYPD. And again, have you heard any of the unions? No, they must be having a cigar party. They must be having drinks. They must be upstate kissing Kathy Hochul's ass, because I haven't heard a word about any of these bills from any of them.
Yeah, this lady's another idiot at the city council. So, fun fact, my mom actually talked to her about when I was fired, because my parents live in her district, right? And she told her she's gonna work on it too. She's gonna look into it too. Nothing ever came of it, She never got back to my mom, and these people, they tell you they work for you, and they don't care. Okay, they have no interest in actually making the lives of people in New York better. Think of it for a second. How many times on patrol do you have to draw your firearm? There are a lot. There's a lot of times where you need to gain compliance, and that necessitates you drawing your firearm. Now, if you have to hesitate to that, that's bad, because again, incidents tend to go. I'm of the mindset that you need to get these incidents under control as fast as you can. Otherwise, the longer it goes on, the greater the likelihood it's going to go sideways. And these people want you to second guess yourselves, and they do not care about your life and how much that impacts the product of policing in the city. So I have nothing but content for people like that in city council.
It's interesting. We're talking about hesitation here, right? We're absolutely creating a dangerous environment for police officers. Police officers go to calls with people that are armed. We don't know if it's a firearm. We don't know if it's a knife. Could be a bat. There's various forms of being armed where you may need to take your firearm to actually de-escalate a situation. That's what city council doesn't understand, or maybe they do understand and they do it intentional, is that part of de-escalation sometimes is taking your firearm and actually taking immediate action. De-escalation is not always just a conversation. And yes, taking your firearm is a use of force and it's a presence, but the fact that you want to document it every single time is absolutely insane. And sometimes I would do that every day, just like you said, John. I would do that sometimes throughout a tour. Sometimes you're involved, right? You get up, you get your uniform on, you do a uniform check, right? You check your firearm. Sometimes if you're in a foot chase, what happens? Everything gets discombobulated. You reassemble yourself. You check your uniform equipment. You take your firearm. You put it back in. You make sure that everything is seated properly. You want to make sure it is where it normally is. These uniform checks. So what I would say is, if you're an active NYPD police officer right now, prepare for holster stat, because the NYPD, the leadership, will fold as they always do, and there will be a 4-stat, chalk stat, comp stat, DV stat. There's a stat for everything, and there'll be a holster stat also, and there'll be plenty of chiefs. Did they take their holster out? This is absolutely insane. This emasculation of the police department upon emasculation. This is silly. This is silly. That's why it's that meme is hilarious, Marlon, because it's dumb. This is just plain dumb. But here we are. We're dealing with the city council that tries to put the NYPD in situations where they pretty much have a bullseye target on them. I say it often that a cop's going to die by the hands of another, and they just keep creating legislation that actually furthers that truth. And unfortunately, I wish I was wrong, but I do think we're coming to that tipping point.
Yeah, it's crazy. And then the last bill, this doesn't actually come out of New York City Council, but it comes out of the State Assembly. This is Emily Gallagher, a socialist out of New York, Brooklyn, right? So here's Emily Gallagher. She's going to talk about suspended licenses. How she claims that 75% of the people driving on New York City streets have suspended licenses. And she doesn't want law enforcement to interact with them. Right? Obviously, we can't have police doing that. They're ineffective. The police don't work. She wants a decarceral approach to solving this issue. So what she wants is people that have suspended licenses to be ordered to put this speeder like limiter in their vehicle. So, in other words, she wants the way for New York to deal with people with suspended licenses is to allow them to keep driving with suspended licenses, but install this product in her car that her friends are all pushing and will probably profit significantly from. So listen to how ridiculous this girl is. She's an honorable too, because she's in the assembly, the honorable Emily Gallagher. Here, listen to what she has to say.
So, unfortunately, 75% of drivers with suspended licenses, this for the DMV. 75% of drivers with suspended licenses continue to drive, and many of the worst crashes are caused by drivers who already have a suspended license. We have several in New York City in the last year, including the death of a mother and 2 children. I'm wondering, do you know how many fatalities were caused by suspended drivers in New York State over the last year? Additionally, do you have a plan to address the fact that license suspension doesn't generally take irresponsible or dangerous drivers off the road? Licensing drivers is the core function of your agency, so I would assume that this problem is at the forefront of your mind, and I'm wondering how you intend to address it.
Yeah, so we have addressed it by working with our partners in law enforcement, and so
But I don't think you have addressed it because 75% of people are still driving with a suspended license. So it's not addressed.
Well, that's where we rely on law enforcement to assist and to help us with that.
But it's not working. So do you have a new plan? What are some of the new plans? I happen to be supporting and carrying a bill called Stop Super Speeders, which is the ISA device, the inner speed lock assistance device.
Right.
I would like to see that addressed more thoroughly than saying law enforcement will handle it, because law enforcement's not able to handle it. They're still driving with their suspended licenses.
Well, the governor agrees with you because it's in the Article 7, it's in her language for the super speeders. And so we will continue to do the best that we can. We understand we have partnerships with Safe New York, with Vision New York, and we're trying our best to work with our partners to eliminate all of that, especially dangerous, reckless drivers.
Right.
And so we will continue to do our best.
Great. And I agree with Senator Cooney that it should be statewide, not just New York City. Thank you.
Thank you.
So, I mean, a hysterical exchange. I thought I was laughing because I'm like, what are you what do you want the DMV to do about people that are out on the street? How do you think they're going to handle it without law enforcement? Like, oh, we're just going to install this thing in their car and just allow them to keep driving.
Yeah. This is ridiculous. It's like, you know what, from now on, if someone commits a robbery, you know what, let's just let them walk on the street and we'll put them in a straitjacket so they can't use their hands, but they can walk around. This is just plain dumb. And I love the fact that people always say the police department, somehow the police department become the most ineffective tool. Like, the police department just doesn't work. The police department doesn't work for this. It doesn't work for that. Well, what does it work for? Can someone tell me, please, what does it work for? Because at this point, according to these politicians and legislators, it doesn't work for anything.
Look, and here she is. She hates cars, but she has over $4,000 in red light tickets.
Yeah.
You know how hard that is to do? That's almost as hard as ending up with 17 collars before you become a chief in the New York City Police Department.
Dude, I was just going to say, that's hilarious.
Well, do you see how the bills that they're pushing are kind of leading us down a path to more technocracy and more tracking and more of a digital prison, right? The bill that she's pushing is going to lead to them putting more measures in a car that will digitally, so more electronic measures that can control your vehicle, and this leads to more cameras tracking you around the city. And what Mercedes Narcisi is trying to do is, you know, Chief Lukash mentions here how departments there are other departments where as soon as you pull your firearm, your body worn camera is activated, and you see where her measure is pushing for that's what it leads to. Okay, all of these bills that these guys are pushing are basically opening the door for big tech to come in with surveillance contracts, and it's pretty obvious at this point. Wait. One other thing I want to point out too. Sorry, John. New York State recently updated the points for infractions.
Oh, how nice of them! Oh, wow, really serving the people. Wow, so everything has increased. That's good.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. So we're seeing where all of this is headed to, right? It's all headed to the same place, which is more tracking, more digital.
You not in a car.
Of some sort.
You not in a car. Completely anti-car. 15 minutes. Someone said it here. 15-minute cities. That's exactly what they want. Emily will be driving around blowing red lights, but you can't. You know, none of you peasants on here can. You know what I mean? Slave. Water. No.
You know what's pretty funny? John, if you remember,
get on the bus.
John, if you remember when we were in the 120, there was a girl there. I don't want to name her name, but it's kind of funny. But she wrote I'll never forget. She wrote on the 61. She had, which is a complaint report. John, if you remember, and you worked with her in the 123, so you know who I'm talking about. So I won't say her name, but it was pretty funny. But she locked up someone for suspended license, but she wrote that they blew the stop sign. I'll never forget all the sergeants like, anybody read this report? Like, I get it. That's what we say. Yeah, she wrote it. The occupant blew the stop sign.
You must have had a big mouth, blow that stop sign.
All the sergeants like, hey, did anybody see this report? Did anybody ever blow a stop sign here?
Yeah, I definitely did things like that a couple of times though. I definitely did it.
You know what I'm talking about. I think her name rhymed with Anato.
I know exactly who you're talking about. So we'll leave her alone. She blew the stop sign.
Yeah, I thought it was hilarious.
That's funny shit. Yeah. So anything else before we start to close out?
You got coffee donuts?
Super chats? Well, we're gonna do that. Yeah, we definitely got to get to that.
No, Mom's always got something else.
No, I just got one quick thing. I just got to find it for a second. No, you know what? Skip ahead. I'll talk about it at the end because someone in the chat brought it up earlier, and I thought it's cool for me to throw in a little recommendation for tonight. So
another book?
They said watch the movie They Live. It's starting to come true.
The Warriors?
The movie They Live.
Oh, okay. I saw Stephen S. put up The Warriors, by the way, my favorite movie.
Yeah, so he's mentioning the movie They Live, which is a John Carpenter science fiction movie. And okay. I always reference this movie, by the way. So I thought it was funny that William brought it up in the chat. But yeah, it's a very fascinating movie considering the times we're in, William. That's my recommendation, guys. If you got free time tonight and you want to watch a good movie, go find this movie. It's a science fiction.
Free time? What is that?
Yeah. So.
Never watched it. Never saw it.
Great movie. Roddy Piper.
Is it Roddy Piper's in it?
Yeah. He's
that was Roddy Piper. Yeah.
Legend killer, Roddy.
That explains the guns.
Yeah, nice.
Oh yeah, Hunter puts a Roddy Piper.
Nice.
Oh shit.
Yeah, before we read the super chats, just tonight, executive perspective, 5:05 p.m. Eastern time.
Yeah.
They're gonna be discussing Mondani's doubling down of the New York City's Department of Community Safety. We touched on it a little today, so make sure you check them out tonight.
John, you got the time right, brother.
I know, I'm getting better, dude. Thank you.
I'm waiting to do that all up.
All right, let's get to the super chats here. Even though Marlon fucked me all up here. Hold on. Okay.
Yeah, Marlon's like that kid in class, man. Always like, yeah. Anybody else got anything?
All right. Let's go. We got Upstate Detective. Good morning, brothers. Before I got on the police department, I worked at a county jail in Westchester. We routinely called ICE when a prisoner had an ICE detainer. No one protested then. It's insane, bro, right? It's like, oh my God. You racist bastards. Could you believe we used to actually enforce federal immigration law like every other nation on earth? We used to actually cooperate with other law enforcement agencies. Oh my God, I can't believe it. I cannot believe we had police commissioners and police chiefs who didn't think they were politicians. Wow, I can't believe it. I mean, and this avoids all the nonsense we're seeing on the street. So it's ridiculous that we're not doing that anymore. It's absolutely ridiculous. It's causing all of the problems. It's literally causing the problem that they claim that they don't want. So,
Wait, so law enforcement went to law enforcement? Okay. I got it.
Yeah, that's okay. And they didn't just turn a blind eye to corruption then? Well, maybe they did,
They're not bribes, they're gifts.
Yeah, the only country that doesn't enforce illegal immigration. Go to any other country in the world.
Yeah.
Right? See what they do to you.
It's told you so back when says if PVT Santiago wasn't in danger, why the transfer?
That's great.
What are we talking about? I'm missing it.
Oh, come on. You don't know the movie? You can't handle the truth.
That's
yeah. Did you pull the code red?
You good man, right?
Why was Private Santiago why would the transfer?
I missed it.
Yeah, I told you so back when. It's been good, man. On fire. Oh, here's Nin. Hey, Nin. How you doing?
Nin showed up today?
Yeah.
What did he say?
Nothing good.
Was ICE terrorizing people on the street then? No, they weren't, Nin, because they were busy. They were busy getting the detainers. You're right. You're 100% right, Nin. Thank you for weighing in. Thank you. They were not on the street because they didn't need to be, because they had their hands full picking up the detainers from the courts, from the police departments, from everywhere else. So next time you travel overseas and you go through the checkpoint and they tell you you're only going to be here for 7 days and you're authorized, remember, if you don't, guess what? They're going to come and terrorize you in that country. But you're not going to be upset about it then, are you? No, because it's only America that's racist, right?
Wait a minute. What time is it? Oh, well.
Yeah, I don't know. It's weird.
Yeah. I see Nin put up another one too. He says, according to his podcast, ICE is violent and untrained, but also face no consequences for their action. No, Nin, we said ICE is untrained for protests.
What a dummy.
We said their strategy is ineffective. Okay, get it right. Okay.
Nin's probably just upset because we highlighted Levon Holly's collars, and he probably has more than Nin does. So,
I would put my money on that one.
Nin's got Eric Adams numbers. I bet you. 516 Diecast, another excellent show full of common sense. Thank you. Common sense is not so common today, fellas.
No. Is it, Nin?
Is it Nin? No, definitely not.
No.
Not for Nin. Sleepy Joe's. I'm surprised Bragg isn't out there himself helping the perps on these 30s and 32s. Look, you know what's sick about it is he's like a national figure of incompetence and a national figure of everything that's wrong with the criminal justice reforms and this decarceral approach to criminal justice. And he overwhelmingly won his reelection, like in a landslide. Like it wasn't even it was a landslide victory.
I agree with Nancy wrote in here in the comments. Elections have consequences, and here we are. Yeah, look at the city council. Absolutely,
elections have consequences. I mean, yeah, absolutely.
Well, Manhattan's also a transient community and a commuter community. So most of those people, there's a lot of those people who have multiple homes. So they're not seeing the consequences of it,
Yep.
Especially low Manhattan, yeah. So
it's told to you so back when said she mentioned sub-freezing because of the podcast, talking about Jessica Tisch earlier. Yeah, I mean they're gonna have to take away the cop of the month from Jack Frost, and they're attempting to, So, but I think everybody knows the truth.
You think Jack Frost is on the Q teams?
Like once Jack Frost leaves and the weather warms, it's gonna look a lot more dangerous in New York City.
Yeah.
And everybody knows it. And guess what? Even though they're talking about bringing back your overtime, taking it away your overtime, it ain't gonna go anywhere once the weather gets warm. You're gonna be wishing you didn't have any overtime. So.
Oh, this is funny, by the way. This is actually pretty funny by Nin. How many protesters are paid again, by the way?
Just at the top, Nin. There's a lot of useful idiots. So very, very few of them. Very few. But you know, I saw. You know, what's funny? I saw Relly Rel was outside of City Hall, and he was screaming about Mondani. We know about your mother.
I saw
So
that.
now he turned on Zoran. So Relly Rel's out there. So you know, speaking of paid protesters, you know, so I feel a bit. So it's told you about back when you messed up, bro. Not right. He says she looks like Bo Derek. You know.
Oh God.
I used to love Bo Derek. You know.
Me too.
So Stephen Des says, play stupid games, win stupid prizes.
Yeah. It's kind of like Marlon's Fafo. Fuck around, find that.
That's it.
Cautionary tale.
That's
Marlon,
it.
you can't say fuck around, find that. You gotta keep saying Fafo, bro. That's it.
Fafo, baby.
After 15 minutes, Eric.
Yeah. 14 and a half, no good.
And then Smith weighs in. Holly is straight garbage. Shame on the PC, chief of detectives, and the DEA for allowing this motherfucker to continue to destroy the good men and women on the job. Look, if that's true, what he did, it shows you where his priorities lie. And I'm gonna say the same thing. I'll say clear and convincing evidence, straight garbage.
I think Mike Smith got him promoted, honestly.
I think so too.
Mike, you got him promoted. Where are you, Mike? Yeah, you got him promoted, dude.
Yeah, sick. All right, people. All right, so all right, let's get out of here. No use arguing with Nin or Juju. Juju says we're a small podcast. We don't move the needle. We only ever have 200 people watching. I mean, the kid's delusional. He really is.
Yeah. How can you serve your students at John Jay if you're so delusional?
Yeah, it's so delusional. You know. So, all right. All right, let's get off this small podcast that nobody listens to.
The best part is Juju spends the majority of his life with us.
Yeah, this is all day.
I know.
All day.
Yeah.
It's
a small podcast he's addicted to watching.
It's easy when you're a loser lieutenant in a unit that you know nothing about and do nothing at. You know, so it's easy. So we know where you are. We know where you are in Queens. You know.
Oh yeah. I hear AI writes books for now. They can write a book for you.
Yeah. He must have either that or he had to hire a cop to write it for him because you know nothing about his career says anything about his book. You know.
Juju is looking out right now. What is police work?
Yeah.
Watching the Finest Unfiltered.
Oh, I'm a lieutenant. Oh, me? They want me to go to the detail? What's the chances? Juju's like, he's one of those dudes that like he's always limited, or he's always restricted.
Oh,
you know? Man. No, I had a bunion on my toe. Or like I just, you know, my finger hurts. So, all right, peoples, let's cut it out here. So, all right, yeah, we'll be back. We'll be back around table on Friday. We were supposed to have a guest on today, but he got food poisoning. So now we're gonna make him wait another year to come on. So that's it. He's throwing up.
I wonder what he was eating, so I know not to go there.
I don't know, bro. It's the worst. The food poisoning. I had it twice. It's the absolute worst. Absolute worst feeling in the world.
I had it. It was like a year and a half ago while I was podcasting. Oh, it was terrible. Oh my god.
Worse. You remember when they had the bus strike? They had like do you remember when they had the bus strike a long time ago?
Yeah. You're talking about with who was that? Trusan? Trusan's name was the MTA union guy.
I don't remember. I think it was like 2013 or something. But I would have. I got overtime to do like the midnight, like the bus strike. But like nothing was going on, right? So we were just whatever. I took my guys out. We went out and I ate by Maimonides. I got like a chicken pesto sandwich, a little deli right by Maimonides Hospital. We got stuck in the hospital. I forget why. And the deli was usually good. And like they moved. All the workers went there. And I don't know. I started feeling like shit like towards the end of the tour. And I'm like, I don't feel good. I feel terrible. So I get home. And I feel like I have to go to the bathroom really bad. So I rush upstairs and I get home. You know, I'm going against rush hour because I'm driving from Brooklyn to Staten Island. So I get home pretty quick. And next thing I know, I'm on a toilet bowl and I feel like I have to shit. And instead of shitting, this never happened to me before in my life. I started projectile vomiting across my bathroom.
Man, you didn't know what end it was coming, huh?
Dude, it was the absolute worst. Like it happened to me then, and it happened to me during during the riots too. It was horrible, dude. Twice. And it's the same thing. It was chicken both times.
Oh man, it's salmonella. Ooh.
Yeah, horrible.
All right,
Horrible.
you heard it here. Not just coffee and donuts. We need to get you some Pepto Bismol. Let's get some Pepto Bismol.
Charcoal though, dude. If you start to feel sick, my wife has the activated charcoal.
Oh,
take that. That stuff works. If your stomach feels weird for any reason, take activated charcoal. It works, man. Definitely works.
Well, I'll take it. Sounds good.
Yeah. All right, peoples. All right, we'll see you tonight at 5:05 p.m. Eastern Time. Executive Perspective. Take it easy, fellas.
All right, guys.
And
Be
ladies.
safe, everyone.
Later. Find us a filter.
Later.
There's a handful of retired officers that don't live in the state that have a lot to say about the dream team, as I like to call it. All of a sudden, they retire and have a master plan on how to fight crime, but nothing to contribute when they were here. They want to come back and be part of the dream team. What can I say?